everyone, I'm Kritisha.
And I am Aditya.
And welcome to Dhikichyau, the podcast. This is episode 42. And I think usually हामी podcast गर्ने बेला चाहिँ we usually find the topic and then look for people. But in days like today, we find like interesting people and then we make a point to talk to them. So we are in conversation with Aakriti Ghimire and Anugya Kunwar. So welcome, guys.
Thank you so
much.
Thank you. We're super excited to be here, especially together.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is this the first time you guys are doing a podcast together, Ki?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But not the last.
For
sure.
For sure. Right. So a little bit of introduction for both of them. We will be listening to them about their journey, but like halka intro from our side. So Aakriti, she is a journalist at the Kathmandu Post. Yay. And she covers social affairs, specific but not limited to the issue of women, gender rights, and queer rights, right? And she's also a graduate of New York University Abu Dhabi. And she majored in legal studies with Latin honors. Okay. Wow. And then we have Anugya Kunwar, who we will be referring to Nugs.
Yes. Go for it.
I think all praise to Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Ani, she is a pleasure activist and the curator of Feminist Futures Nepal. That's actually how we got to know your work. And she graduated from Asian University of Women, Bangladesh. And she majored in politics, philosophy, and economics, and a minor in gender studies. She leads various workshops on deconstructing shame and guilt around aspects of self-pleasure. So, welcome again.
Welcome.
How do you guys feel?
Super excited. I think that would be an understatement at the moment.
Wow.
But I'm really curious to see how this conversation is going to unfold, but also like hear both of your perspective on it as well.
Sure.
So त्यसको लागि super looking forward to
We're
it.
super excited to have you guys. And तिमीहरुको intro सुनेर मलाई intimidate भइसक्यो.
I know, intro that bang bang bang.
We all fake it with the intro.
I know,
we need to learn how to sell ourselves. Okay? And that's something that you learn once you leave Nepal, because yata everyone is telling you to, oh, shut up, stop talking about yourself. And if you don't do that, how are you going to go ahead?
All right.
Agreed. But apart from the intro and whatever, we would want to hear your story. So like journey हुन्छ नि, because we were talking about this before, okay? Chao and I were talking, because हामी चाहिँ पहिलादेखि नै, I don't know, for some reason we had like, both of us are like marketing, management background, and पहिलादेखि नै, yeah, this is what I want to do, खालेको हुन्छ नि. Also, I think we were also influenced by our families, अनि त्यही नै भएको हो नि त. So what is your journey like? Like, how did you, because bachelor's मा त, it's like actually भन्यो भने, it's a young age for people to actually, pick a
Dive
major,
into
okay?
यस्तो खाले कुराहरु पनि.
And for you guys to like dive into it and being like continuing it and like doing like wonderful stuff is like commendable. So do you guys want to start with Timarko journey? How you just like woke up one day and was like, yeah, this is what I want to do.
I wish it was that easy.
Yeah, we'd like to hear.
I know, but like I want Anugya to go first.
Okay, for sure. I think it was all undergrad because I did science mero plus 2 ma. And I call that mero creatively exiled period of my life, because I wasn't being challenged academically. But I think what really got me interested in this field, especially regarding gender issues, was my professors. I remember I was taking my first year at this course called World Civilizations, and my professor made a point to always ask the women question. Okay, so जुन पनि civilization को कुरा गरे पनि, she would be like, where are the women? What was their contribution? Because there was a contribution, but it's always been systemically erased, right? So त्यो question सोध्ने बित्तिकै I was like, this is something that I want to learn more about.
Right.
And then I found myself doing my minor in gender studies. And I think that's really how, like, academically I got really motivated to pursue this, right?
Okay.
But in terms of talking about Feminist Futures Nepal and talking about pleasure activism, I think the roots of the origin of this project started, again, Bangladesh, because that was my formative years, right? In terms of like what I want to do, what my interests are. So त्यो बेला चाहिँ, this is very interesting and it's sort of sad as well. So my university is in Chittagong and it is one of the international universities, all women, right? So our university had this title, which it was known for by the local community. So it was called the Whore House of Chittagong. Because we were international women. Ani, we weren't living with our parents. Ani त्यो भएको कारणले चाहिँ we were seen as easy, you know, you can have fun with them, they're more open. So a lot of this narratives त्यसमा थियो कि because of that, and this is something I did not know. Even though the administration ma yo tha थियो, I've talked to like people in authorities and they were aware about this, but still त्यो भएको कारणले पनि हैन, we weren't talking about these issues because oftentimes we would find ourselves in unsafe spaces because our students were very sexualized in the community, right? Ani unsafe spaces ma huन्थ्यो and we did not know how to navigate these, and there's so much of shame and guilt that comes with that, right? So one thing that I really recognized was we weren't talking. There were no spaces to talk about this, although हाम्रो experiences were very similar. So त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ I was a part of the student government. We started the sex education series there. So when I came back to Nepal, that was something that I really wanted to bring because that the same lack of spaces was here as well. So त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ हुन्छ नि, just seeing that lack of space, the need to talk so that we can address the issue was त्यहाँबाट चाहिँ start भएको. And I'm glad that I'm being able to pursue this yani Nepal mani and contextualize the work that we've been doing. So that's like a brief introduction of how FFN got into play and my passion for gender issues, but also passion for creating those spaces for such conversation. Yeah.
So like you, the subject you were talking about, what was it?
Gender studies?
No. Like timro professor le question garne.
Hey, world civilization.
Oh, so world civilization was part of the course that you were studying in Bangladesh?
Yes, it was. It was. It was like one of the basic courses that we had to take.
So like you studied science here, and then you decided to go to. So how did you transition?
Very like out of the blue actually. Kun bela चाहिँ Dr. Bansu थियो class 11 ma. Obviously we all have those moments. So Dr. Bansu and थियो 12 ma took maths, like completely like, you know, left biology. त्यसपछि चाहिँ law गर्छु नेपालमा भनेको थियो. त्यसपछि कहाँबाट Asian University को brochure पाएँ, and then I saw PP like politics, philosophy, economics, and I was like, I don't know shit about any of these topics, but I want to learn that. So it was very हुन्छ नि, out of the blue, let's do this, I think I'll be interested sort of thing. But that's
so you
how
sort of like explored and found
I did. And I think liberal arts curriculum really helps you explore pani. So the way it really helps me like academically see where I saw myself in the future.
Interesting.
Okay.
Actually,
So my journey is a little all over the place.
Which is fine.
Which is completely fine, exactly. So again, sciences, and I actually enjoyed it. I loved studying physics. I hated biology. So I really enjoy the sort of plus 2 curriculum that I was doing here. I went in with this sort of narrowed headspace. I'm going to do a major in physics. So I went in and then studied all sciences for the first year. And I was like, I wasn't feeling it. Because feminism was something that was always with myself ever since, say, grade 7, 8. Also because of the schooling and the sort of, because we were in an all-girls school. But we were always aware of our gender identity.
So you guys were in St. Mary's?
St. Mary's.
Yeah. Both of you guys?
Yes. We've been friends since grade 2.
And same section as well.
Yeah.
Nice.
So, interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, so it was all-girls school environmentally, that sort of your passion for feminism and you being conscious of who you are as a woman always played out. And त्यसपछि I went to Budankanta school, so which was extremely heavily male-dominated school. So त्यो भएपछि I was like,
we had articles come out about Budankanta go. Were you like aware?
I was.
There's really not being aware.
I mean, were you also involved with not writing the piece, but with the person who discussion?
Yes and no as well. At the time, she was a senior. Mansidi wrote the article. Mansidi wrote it, and she was 2 years senior to us, so never actually got to meet her in person. But after when the article was coming out, she was doing her research, so we were aware that the research is happening for the article. And then once it came out, and I'd like to add the title of that story. The piece is her story, but
Right.
And when you talk about world civilization, history, Sunny, his story. Think about the gendered aspect to how history always negates women's contribution.
Are
Is
you
that
saying
how the word...
It's not, but like if you analyze it, you can see where it's just trying to make sense of it later on. Okay?
Right,
You get what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was there कि अनि बुढानगढमा गएपछि पनि always being aware of how women were treated, the way that say हाम्रो हाउसेसमा लक लगाइदिन्थ्यो कि राति हैन केटाहरू चाहिँ they would be like हामी त बाहिर गएर पुरा उसमा टप पिचमा सुत्दिन्छ भन्थ्यो कि we're like bro we have to be back by like 8 maximum. If we have to go out we have to inform our head of house. There was a whole lot of process that was happening ni ta.
And केटी भएपछि हेड बोय or हेड गर्ल हुनु मिल्थेन हैन what is it like एउटा मात्र हुन्थ्यो something like that no
yeah so I applied for that position
okay tell us about it.
So I applied for that position अनि always केटाहरू मात्र हुने किन कोही पनि केटी अप्लाई नै नगरिरहेको
what is it called head boy नै भन्छ
head boy
school captain so there's just one.
There's one school captain and deputy school captain हुन्थ्यो कि अनि deputy school captain चाहिँ एउटा केटा हुन्थ्यो एउटा केटी हुन्थ्यो कि त्यो चाहिँ for sure.
Deputy school captain चाहिँ दुईटा हुन्थ्यो school captain चाहिँ एउटा एकजना मात्र हुन्थ्यो.
It was always केटाहरू किन पहिला कुराहरू गर्दाखेरि पहिला नै एउटा स्कुल क्याप्टन दाइ हुनुहुन्थ्यो तर त्यो दाइ जानु भयो बाहिर सो अर्को डेपुटी स्कुल क्याप्टन केटीलाई ब्रिफली बनाइदिएको थियो भन्ने खालको कुरा हुन्थ्यो कि but like there was no sort of conversation where girls would be like ल म पनि अप्लाई गर्छु भनेर के अनि also keeping in mind कि म नयाँ स्टुडेन्ट थिएँ कि सो बुढानगढमा चाहिँ नयाँ पुरानो इज अ ह्युज थिङ कि अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि आई अप्लाइड अनि त्यसपछि had the interviews and everyone was like कि which I understand their concerns कि हुन्छ नि how will you manage this sort of community which is so predominantly male and come from that sort of mindset and also purana students okay so which I understand but speech back here everyone was like the principal came and he just congratulated me for the speech because my speech went so well okay?
Obviously
I still remember how it was and obviously exactly and this it was like just applied for that but then also everyone being like oh my god take it you who applied for it khalko hai na which is
were you the only girl who applied
yes
like till date like in the history
not till date no, I think the batch ma
yeah but the greatest thing is कि त्यसपछि मैले so like next batch मा 3 जना केटीले अप्लाई गर्यो नि पाउन त पाएन but still which is also a start for it to be out there
for sure
so you didn't get the
I became the deputy school captain
okay
अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि that was there and working around navigating that but also very sexist environment बुढानगढ school अनि त्यसपछि there was this whole Bhojpuri dance and everything where which is extremely sexist extremely
I don't
sexist,
know about that can you elaborate alikati I don't know about the Bhojpuri
so
dance.
बुढानगढ स्कुलमा चाहिँ त्यो कल्चरल प्रोग्राम हुन्छ कि सिपी भन्छ सो हाउसेस भनेको इन नर्मल अदर स्कुल्स इट्स लाइक रेड ब्लू येलो ग्रिन भन्ने खालको हाउसेस भयो भने बुढानगढमा चाहिँ द हाउस द्याट यु लिभ इन द्याट्स योर हाउस कि सो म रत्नचुली हाउसमा थिएँ कि
अनि how many houses are there
around 12-13 जस्तो yeah so like it's legit house where you live in अनि different activities हरू गर्दा त्यही हुन्छ कि सो सिपी चाहिँ आफ्टर से 7:30 मा डिनर हुन्थ्यो भने त्यो दिन चाहिँ 7 मा डिनर सकेर 7 देखि 9 सम्म चाहिँ कल्चरल प्रोग्राम हुन्छ कि वेयर पिपल आर डान्सिङ देयर डुइङ स्किट्स यताउति खालको कि अनि इट्स भेरी ब्युटिफुल इन अ वे कि वेयर हाम्रो नर्मल सोसाइटिजमा गाइज डोन्ट डान्स भने त्यहाँ गाइज आर डान्सिङ एकदम मजाले कि एन्ड देयर सच ग्रेट डान्सर्स कि अनि यतिसम्म कि दे विल डान्स इन केटीको सङ्ग्स पुरै केटीको अटायर लगाएर के एन्ड द्याट्स समथिङ द्याट वाज समथिङ भेरी न्यू टु मी एन्ड विच आई रियली एप्रिसिएट पनि होइन बट देन अल्सो देयर वाज दिस ह्युज पार्ट अफ द कल्चर विच वाज भोजपुरी डान्सको कल्चर के तर कस्तो थियो भन्दाखेरि भोजपुरी डान्स वाज भेरी सेक्सिस्ट के जस्तै अब आमैले भन्थे धाराको पानी भन्ने गीतमा नाचिरहेको छ नि देयर आर टु लाइक सेट अफ डान्सर्स अनि टुटुमा पेयर्स गरेको हुन्छ नि त अनि आमैले भन्थे धाराको पानी गरेर अनि अनदर गाई इज सिटिङ देयर एन्ड इज लाइक सिटिङ डाउन मिल्किङ सोर्ट अफ स्टेप्स अनि पुरा यो स्प्याङ्किङ स्टेप्स होइन
oh my god
and this in front of all the teachers
this is in front of all the teachers in front of the principals
and that's okay
exactly and that's normalized that's okay for them अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि त अनि यतिसम्म कि by the end of it someone impersonated a girl टावल बेरेको छ तल अनि त्यसपछि विग लगाएर पुरा अब impersonating a girl walking अनि turns to the suppose यहाँ audience छ भने turns to the guys अनि flashes यसरी अनि all the guys fall down के so that is how the dance ended के अनि we watch that अनि again नयाँ स्टुडेन्ट हामी अब हामीलाई त्यस्तो पचेन अनि we're like what the fuck did we just see like our bodies were being sexualized in front of every single person out there and that's okay कसैले केही गरेन खालको के यस्तो चित्त बुझेन के that's the thing that's their culture that is something that पहिलेदेखि भइरहेको थियो पहिला त झन् कस्तो हुन्थ्यो यो त केही पनि होइन कि that is their rationale के अनि principal came in प्रिन्सिपलले त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ he called in those dancers अनि he slapped them भन्ने खालको हामीले सुन्यो होइन. We were like ए ओके खालको. अनि two of my other friends and I, we were like, we went back. There was this sort of intranet facility where we could talk with हाम्रो batchmates without having the internet के. अनि हो त्यसमा चाहिँ we told the guys, we were like, guys this is super हुन्छ नि एकदमै like उ भयो we're very offended भनेर लेखेको थियो. अनि त्यसपछि सुरुमा a couple of them were like यस्तो अर्को केटाहरूको एउटा हाउसले गरेको थियो नि त अनि अर्को ब्याचको सिपीमा चाहिँ यस्तो हुँदैन भनेर भनेको थियो कि. अनि we're like ल ओके. अनि एकैछिनमा they're like के को अफेन्डेड खालको दे ग्याङ अप के गाइजहरूको एकदम यो देयर अब के भने भातृत्व ब्रदरहुड if I may अनि भातृत्व सङ्गठन भन्छ नि
आदित्य
अनि त्यसपछि that sort of thing. अनि we were like हो त्यो भयो. अनि त्यसपछि घर गएको थियो. I wrote पुरा नेपाल अनि त्यसपछि everyone is offended अनि हामी तिनजना कता हिँड्दाखेरि पनि offended भनेर कि. अनि मलाई त त्यति साह्रो साइडलाइन गर्न सकेन. मेरो फ्रेन्ड्सहरूले त एक्सट्रिम साइडलाइन गरिदिने कि बिकज द सोर्ट अफ ग्रुप्स आई वाज इन्भल्भ इन साइडलाइन गर्न पनि मिलेको थिएन बट अरूहरूकोमा हुन्छ नि. अनि इट वाज जस्ट गेटिङ टु मच कि अगाडि आएर चाहिँ कोही भन्ने हिम्मतै छैन कि. अनि आई वेन्ट अप टु सर्टन गाइज आई वाज लाइक तिमीले कोरियोग्राफ गरे हो तिम्रो बाबुआमाको अगाडि गरे भए के हुन्थ्यो भनेर भन्दै. अनि त्यसपछि हो यस्तै it was अनि त्यसपछि there was certain people who submitted letters to the principal पनि हैन यस्तै नयाँ स्टुडेन्टहरु. अनि I went and I personally talked to the principal as well. I was like हो यस्तो सबै भयो what are you going to do about it भनेर के. अनि त्यसपछि त उनीहरूले यिनीहरूले गर्दा अनि the principalको action was to suspend them के. A residential schoolमा तिमीले सस्पेन्ड गरे के हुन्छ एक दिन क्लास त गएन नि सक्यो.
So if you get suspended from residential school you just stay at your
क्लास नजाने त्यो दिन. You don't even go home.
It's a holiday.
Class नजाने.
This is the होइन होला. म पनि I have been suspended from residential school. I was in Bangalore and my dad was asked to pick me up within 24 hours.
Nepal ni ta.
So yeah, difference. All right. I didn't know that. All right, continue.
Ani just that was all there. So you know how you're always aware of who you are भन्ने खालको कुरा नि त. अनि त्यसपछि I was like you know what fuck this shit I'm going to show them who I am. मलाई मतलब पनि छैन. अनि त्यसपछि बल्ल I applied बाहिर के. मलाई नत्र त्यो टाइमसम्म पनि अप्लाई गर्छु भने केही थिएन. अनि this was 1 महिना अगाडि के. So I went to my recommenders. I was like I'm going to apply abroad. Recommendations मलाई चाहियो. Regular decisions मा गरेँ. I wasn't telling like मैले usually when you're applying you have a whole lot of I was like no I'm going to do this. Have 3 दिनमा personal essay पनि हेर्यो. अनि one of my friends just went over it. अनि त्यसपछि applied got in. And I was like I was the only person who actually got in without having to take a gap year पनि के. अनि त्यो अब हुन त it wasn't something for them but like मेरो दिमागमा I was like fuck you हुन्छ नि. But yeah अनि त्यसपछि so that was a whole fiasco around it. अनि also there was this whole अनि अगाडि आएर नभन्ने. So मैले चाहिँ फेसबुकमा लेखेको थिएँ कि. So what one of the guys did he shared that in हाम्रो यो 7000D को ब्याचको ग्रुप. Every single one of them commenting कि हुन्छ नि नयाँ भएर किन हिरो पल्टेको यो त हाम्रो कल्चर हो यो पुरा हुन्छ नि एउटा कल्चरलाई यो गरेको.
क्लासमा चाहिँ त्यहाँ गएको थियो बुहाङ कन्ट्रोल 11 मा alright.
Yeah, I think 10 बाट भएको is पुरानो. The one who joined in 11-12 is नयाँ हैन.
Exactly. अनि the thing is कि as this was unfolding मैले त्यहाँ मेरो पुरानो केटी फ्रेन्ड्सहरु पनि हैन we would talk with them like यस्तै त हो नि खालको कि they couldn't see why it's wrong भन्ने कुरा पनि कि. But of course years down the line हुन्छ नि they were like घिमिरे तिमीले पहिला भनेको कुरा was true रहेछ कस्तो cool रहेछ भन्ने खालको because अब they've always seen that त्यो भएपछि उनीहरुलाई पनि त to recognize that is wrong नि त. It was a whole process. But going back to my journey, and that was where it all like it was always a part of me. But then physics गरिरहेको छ त अनि I was always passionate about these issues कि अनि त्यो कस्तो there was always a tension कि अनि मलाई चाहिँ I'm like well if this is the sort of field that I want to get into in the future why am I taking the long route जस्तो भइरहेको थियो कि. अनि also at a point I had to come to terms with the fact कि अब बुढानी कन्ट्रो स्कुलमा त स्कुल टपर हुन्छ नि रेकर्ड ब्रेक गरेको यताउति अनि उता गएर त I'm a no one कि I'm a fucking no one हुन्छ नि.
Why did you just downplay that? Topper and why did you just downplay that one? Like, that's I think huge, no?
St. Mary's man topper
tell us about that.
Because I love studying Nita. I love studying.
Bro, your team was all done topper because she's also the gold medalist in our batch.
Oh yes, we love that.
Oh. Damn.
I love studious people. Okay.
What?
Kick him out. Kick out the out of the suspend back
Twice.
We'll talk about that after the podcast.
Yeah, so it's like uta gaeपछि त्यो major so such a like it was a whole process for me to deal with the fact that I'm an average. I became an average. Sala score pretty average. I was like, what the fuck is happening? I know all of this, but I still can't answer the questions. And that also made me think about how hamla yaha critical thinking is.
Exactly.
मलाई concept सबै थाहा छ मैले साँच्चै भन्नुपर्दा first year I only learned quantum होला के that was the only new thing होला के that I learned with sciences. Everything I've covered all the bases, but still I wasn't able to answer the questions. And त्यो पनि भइरहेको थियो अनि coming to terms with, do I really want to do this? And त्यसपछि I had my semester of exploring where I was like, econ major गर्दिम कि I was taking econ classes, microecon. अनि त्यसपछि I was at a point I was like theater major गर्दिम कि अनि त्यही time I was taking contract law class. And I had this professor, my mentor, I love him. And he just made all of it so much more fun. Like I could see the logic, like I love logic. And I could see the logic in law. So I was taking legal studies and he kind of convinced me to get into legal studies. And त्यसपछि I did. And त्यसपछि it was more about getting into law, taking legal studies classes, which was mostly based on British law. And त्यो भएपछि that's how I went into it. But also, मेरो त्यहाँको studies were never directly aligned with gender studies. That was always something that I was looking for, but I never kind of got into it. But of course, I had some time more into it. So that time I analyzed it from a feminist perspective, wrote about it. And all of these were things that I was doing as my passion. But it wasn't something that I could bring up in the table and be like, okay, this is what I do professionally. So त्यो tension oily pani tha, because oily pani I want to go get into law, but like how am I going to tailor it into a way where my passion for feminism, my passion for gender rights also comes within it. So त्यो tailoring, customizing, I still have to do, and I still have to navigate that. But ani त्यसपछि I knew I was always like, that was my field of interest. Came back to Nepal because I needed a break. Extreme self-esteem ta dhajya huncha ni. As I didn't have the confidence in myself by the time I was graduating, but I also was very aware ki I need a break because padeko bhayirako थियो, and also because I know I can do better, but I'm just not in the headspace. And त्यसपछि came back. And I love writing pani ke त्यो सँगसँगै, and that was also something that I realized over time. And I would do my personal writings, and because the fact that people could actually resonate with my writing, I was like, okay, maybe I can do this भन्ने खालको. Because त्यो भन्दा अगाडि again I wasn't great at writing के हुन्छ नि. If स्कुलमा पनि इङ्ग्लिसमा I wasn't the great student. मार्क्स आउँथ्यो, but that doesn't mean you can write नि त हैन. अनि त्यसपछि it was coming back, just kind of being like, what if I could get paid for writing, just sort of thing.
Okay.
And he somehow saw Ankitko post ma on Instagram ma ki like he'd written Kathmandu Post ma opening. So I was like, Ankit ma pathaidin ta mero writing pieces CV haru pathaide. In a couple of weeks I got a call back. And also coming back home and घरमा बस्न is hard and I needed a space to get out of home as well. And I went for the interview. They're like, when can you start? I was like, when do you want me to start? They're like, tomorrow. I was like, sure. And then next day, but I just started it.
Wow.
So that was how I got into journalism. Surprisingly, it's a really good fit for me.
It is.
Because as a nerd, I need to learn. I always need to have a learning curve. And with journalism, the learning curve is really high. Right. Especially even with the writing style. I can see how my writing has improved. How I started with an academic way of writing versus oileko way of writing. I can see how I've improved as well over time. Ani त्यो भएपछि writing सँगसँगै journalism is also about talking to people.
Right.
And I love talking to people. So त्यो भएपछि
we can feel that.
Yeah. त्यो भएपछि it's a great fit. And also the fact कि कति धेरै academic papers पढ्यो, but you always look as humans as subjects. यहाँ आएपछि you meet the human. You meet the human behind the paper, and you also realize that कति धेरै nuances are missed in these academic papers. So it's extremely fulfilling to talk to people on the ground. But at the same time, you talk to experts. You call ministers and you're like, हैन मलाई यसको बारेमा भन्दिनु न हुन्छ नि. You call all of these experts who've been working here for 20-30 years of their lives. So it's extremely fulfilling in that way. And I get to write as well. I get to talk and I get paid for it. So perfect.
Perfect for you. Yeah, sounds interesting. They're like, how is journalism in Nepal? Because I think I saw this, I don't know, Boju Bojuko, I think they're doing some research sort of, and most of the journalists in Nepal, journalist women, like some of them are underpaid, and there was like a lot of thing about मैले राम्ररी चाहिँ हेर्न पाएन तर just like तिमीले भनेर ठक्क connect भयो क्या. So how is it in Nepal, journalism, like
so personally speaking चाहिँ मेरो लागि चाहिँ it's been fine, हैन. I get paid on time, I get paid a good amount, हैन. But that doesn't mean कि हाम्रो अफिसमा अरूले पनि they've had their issues, and those issues have come up in social media as well, very recently as well, हैन. अनि त्यो पेको कुरा त्यो भयो. About writing as a process, somehow they're very supportive, like the sort of feminist angle that I bring in, they're appreciative of it. कति कुरामा research science छ, कति कुरा becomes very academically dense. त्यसको लागि as much as I would want the article to come out la bholi पर्सि नै गर्दिम, it's not possible नि त. Because one perspective that I'm learning is, okay, you write, but think about it, if your mother is to sit down and read this article, will she understand?
Right.
So when you try to bring in that perspective, how are you going to break these huge as academic chunky pieces into very digestible pieces?
Understandable,
exactly,
simple pieces.
So that is also something that I'm learning about how do you do that. Ani another thing is ki content wise I get to do what I want to do, so I'm good with that as of now. But also editing मा के अब there was a time where एउटा article लेखेको थियो, त्यो article को title got edited overnight, मलाई थाहा पनि थिएन कि, and the whole article को title ले itself त्यो whole article made it just another article, जब कि त्यो article whole content is something that has never been covered in the media के. So because your editing process को त्यो discretion आउँदाखेरि पनि is, and my question to my editor later on was like, wasn't this also edited by a cishet upper caste Brahmin man? भनेर के. अनि त्यो भएपछि that is why we're like what I said as well, हामीलाई editorial process मा पनि we need women out there, and we need women who have that sort of perspective and who can bring those critical perspective के. So त्यो भएपछि yes, it is very त्यो हुन्छ नि, it's very male dominated, but somehow it's working for me अहिलेलाई चाहिँ. But also I'm also, I think that's also teaching me how to say कि okay मलाई यो चित्त बुझेन, because सुरुमा त I'm not that confrontational a person, हैन. I'm good with texting and sending people कि like I will send you point by point हुन्छ नि, मलाई यो चित्त बुझेन भनेर, तर त्यही कुरा यसरी अगाडि बसेर भयो भने like I won't be able to say everything के, किन भन्दा people start rationalizing and justifying नि त. I don't want to hear your justification, I just want you to listen to what I have to say for now. So त्यो भएपछि I'm learning to also be like, यो मलाई चित्त बुझेन, this is what I want, this is what I need, I'm sorry,
without rationalizing anything.
Exactly के.
Hopefully अब like maybe once you're here, once you're like, you know, अघि भने जस्तै after you stood up for the school captain अनि पछि गऱ्यो भने चाहिँ hopefully we'll have more writers coming in, journalists coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
I have a question for Anugya. I mean, my turn to speak now. So like my question was, you're a pleasure activist, I know. Ani म चाहिँ I was like having this conversation with them, and they're like, I'm like, म like आज यो podcast गरिरहेको छु भने ममलाई कसरी भन्नु भइरहेको थियो कि मलाई. Like because like this is something we haven't been talking about at home, I know. But for you to come forward as a pleasure activist, like how was it at home?
It's been a process, Thasa, because usually so pleasure activism happened in a pleasure activism is a thing right. So how it started was basically Feminist Futures Nepal existence came forth with me working as the youth champion for this organization called Choice for Youth and Sexuality, which is an organization based in the Netherlands. So wow, let's say they advocate for SRHR, sexual and reproductive health and rights. So I started out as a youth champion. So that's what my family knew about. But I knew I wanted to work on sex education. I knew I wanted that pleasure-centric lens to it. So parents like the initially my SRHR advocate, youth champion, but also because I myself was testing my comfort with talking about pleasure Nepali society because I grew up here. I need the sort of guilt and shame that comes with the topic itself. Because I advocate the garsu, but I need to be comfortable with the topic, right? So that was a process for me. So while I was sort of coming in terms with being comfortable with the topic, I was also having ali like sort of conversations with my mom. And I think it has been such a journey. Papa sang I'm still uncomfortable. That's another level that I'll like sort of navigate. But Mamu I think has been really receptive took her some time. I think this is something that I share all the time. She found out about my sex toy. She didn't talk to me for like a few days. She told me you should get married.
What?
Please tell us about that.
What?
Do you want to hear the story? Like,
yes,
alright.
of course.
Okay, so this is what happened. So because अब 4 वर्ष बाहिर पढेर त एक्लै बस्यो नि त, so you sort of like stop getting used to hiding things के.
Right.
So
alright,
I was
Makes sense.
Exactly, right? So घरमा थिए, अब sex toys there, bed के अब उतै छ हैन. And then my mom comes to my room, not normal thing, right? अनि she looks around and she finds my sex toy right there, and she's like, के हो यो Anugya भनेर के. एकदमै genuine question, right? And in my head I'm like, do I lie or do I tell her what it is? And I was like,
neck massager hai kya?
no, wait, I thought about that because like that's, that would have worked.
Yeah.
But then my sex toy does not look like a neck massager, so that wouldn't have worked. Ani, so what happened was like, so I was like, झुटो बोलूं कि के भनौं भनेर हैन. And then I was like, दिमागमा चाहिँ it was like blackhead remover भनौं. But then again, what if she's like, I want to use it? That would be disgusting. I was like, छोड्दे भन्छु भनेर. It's the pleasure advocacy गर्दैछु भनौं न भनेर. I was like, मामु यो sex toy हो भनेर. And I'm pretty sure she knew what that was. But she's like, के हो त्यो भनेर के. And I was like, masturbation को लागि भनेर के. And she was like, के हो त्यो भनेर. And I was like, हस्तमैथुनको लागि. She knows what that means, and she was like, again, like, and I was like, you put it after klitma, you masturbate. She was like,
When was this weird?
This was like, it's been like 6 months, boy. I think so.
This is recent.
It's pretty recent. I came back recently.
Okay.
So she was like, Anugya, ta biya garre. And I was like, biya kina garne? Like, what the hell? But then
you need an extra hand for this.
Not going there with my mom, but I know, but like that happened, right? And this so I sort of tried to have that conversation, and I was like, Mom, I get where your discomfort comes from, but my research got so masturbation is healthy and everything. And then she was like, masturbation is not unhealthy, it's not healthy. All that myths about masturbation pani aayo ki. And I was like, I get you. Tara, I have done my research. I know this is healthy. I don't need to get married to be like, isto hai na. And then sort of had that conversation, and she didn't talk to me for a few days. And I was like, oh my God, seriously? But after a few days now, she jokes about it. So I think that, so I think it's been a process for her. But again, a lot of topics is something that, there's still ideological gaps because a lot of myths about masturbation, her perspective regarding premarital sex, everything those high, no? But she's been really receptive about the work that I do because I have conversations about it with her. Alikati problematic but it's a process for her as much as it's a process for me. So I think we give each other that space to sort of unpack this whole topic.
Yeah, I think I totally relate with you on that one because most of I haven't like talked about like my sex life and all of that with mom. There are like other things like baira dherai bersama basne and all of that. That's been a process, but one thing I've sort of like noticed is I can have a conversation with my mom and like she'll be very understanding and stuff, but it's some of the irritating uncle aunties ke.
It's what will they say khali हामी समाजमा बस्नु पर्छ.
She's okay when she's talking with me अनि कहिलेकाहीँ तिनीहरु भएपछि अलिकति she gets अलिकति I don't know त्यो trigger हुने के.
Yeah, I get you.
Has that happened to you? Has any like uncle auntie come up to your mom and given her like
unsolicited advice types?
Surprisingly छैन थाहा छ. And I think that's a privilege in itself. Yeah, exactly, because I'll be able to openly talk about these things and not have मेरो family को honor or like character assassination done के. And my family being affected by that, But I think in terms of like मलाई गाह्रो हुन्छ uncle auntie लाई भन्न like के काम गर्छौ नानी भनेपछि अब what do I say? हुन्छ नि. So I'm like sexual and reproductive health and rights मा काम गर्दैछु भनेर हैन. But I think this was आएको छैन, which I'm great, but I think my mom, I get the discomfort because they know it's normal, but it's not normalized in our society. Exactly. So त्यो भएको कारणले चाहिँ there's a lot of the gap पनि हैन. But so far they've been really supportive, and I like it's really nice to have that.
Yeah, I think that's nice.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. So do you want to sort of like elaborate on pleasure activism for our viewers, for our listeners, what you do, and like I think you do a lot of workshops. Maybe talk about that a little bit.
For sure, I think this was such a good question. And like, what is pleasure activism? Because it takes me back to my roots in terms of my activism. What is pleasure activism? And I think one of the things, like the fundamentals of Hamra activism with pleasure is that we believe that pleasure is a birthright and that pleasure is political. And what I mean by pleasure being political is, who has the access to information regarding what the needs of their bodies are, what pleasure for them looks like, or even have the safe space to explore that, to pursue that without guilt, without shame, without even violence. So the way ma चाहिँ pleasure is very political, okay? Because I will sort of like talk about this more पनि हैन, because systemically हाम्रो bodies को बारेमा we don't even talk about it. It's very marginalized, right? So हाम्रो main idea with pleasure activism is to challenge the cis-het male-centric narrative around pleasure. Now, I will sort of like break down the words, because cis-het is not a jargon that we use normally. So cis भनेपछि cisgender भनिन्छ हैन. Basically, that's, for example, the sex that you're assigned at birth, doctor जुन sex assign गर्नुहुन्छ, male, female हैन. If that is similar to your gender identity, that's cisgender. Now, for example दिँदाखेरि अझै it'll make sense. The sex that was assigned to me at birth was that of a female, and my gender identity is that of a woman. So I'm a cis woman, right? So cisgender त्यो भयो. Heterosexual is basically having being attracted towards the opposite sex. So हाम्रो जुन pleasure को narrative छ नि, it's very cis-het male centric. So त्यसलाई चाहिँ we really are trying to challenge that. Ani another thing that we're really working towards is like, how can we expand the narrative around pleasure? What does pleasure mean to me, but also what it means to other people? And just challenging the script that we've already been given, because that script is political in terms of who it caters to. Right. So that's what we're doing. And mostly it's been working with, what does queer pleasure look like? What does pleasure for asexual community look like? How do we desexualize the whole concept about pleasure? But also talk about sexual pleasure, because we don't do that hamro society ma. Right. So this is the main goal. That's how we started. So the entire process has been like, how do we expand that definition of pleasure? Because pleasure is very subjective. As universal it is, it's त्यति subjective. Right. So one of the workshops that I love conducting is called LAJ, Deconstructing Pleasure. So what we do त्यहाँ चाहिँ, it's mostly for vulva owners. So हामीले के गर्छौं भन्दाखेरि we sort of have like 15 vulva owners, like we're all together then, and then we sort of talk about the shame and guilt that we've grown up with in terms of self-pleasure. So we start off with like what pleasure means to us, and then dive into sexual pleasure, and then our relationship with sexual pleasure with our own bodies, and then if we want to, with our partners, right? And one of the best parts is talking about the techniques of vulva pleasure. Okay. And the amount of ideas that you get from all people, like really interesting, really creative, but being able to create that normalized space and the buzz that you hear. So we have this section where we have different questions, and you have to talk about, like, with another person, you have to talk about what turns you on, what you like, and how would you communicate that to your partner, and the buzz in the room. You would even question, like, is sex tabooed in our society? Seeing that buzz. So I think just being able to create that space has been really nice, and I think that's political. Again, I will repeat this time and again, but masturbation is political. Having that space is political. Yeah. Reclaiming our pleasure is political, and I think it's been really wholesome and fulfilling from my end as well.
Right. Interesting. But how is it in Nepal, really? I mean, like you said, your space math, it feels like it's not even a taboo. Yeah. But like when you first started, the first workshop that you did, like how many people showed up? Like how was the response?
It was great. It's always been great. And I think Instagram has been a great platform to like reach out to people. Okay. And Nepal चाहिँ as a whole bandina, because my project has specifically been Kathmandu centric. A very niche crowd. I'll say that, because Instagram bata there's only certain communities that we can reach to, right? But we've also done our workshop and group discussions Pokharama. And this workshop was first done Pokharama, which was so surprising for me, because I don't know a lot of people Pokharama, right? So Instagram, we put it out. This is where exactly digital activism comes in as well. So we put out a post on Instagram, people registered, and we had, I think, 15 to 20, I'm not sure about the numbers, but 15 to 20 folks be present. And it was amazing. So the whole conversation, people are really open to it. Because oftentimes when it comes to sexuality, we pursue it as youth specifically. That's our target audience. oftentimes we pursue this for pleasure, right? Reproduction is a part of it, but I think our main aim is for pleasure, right? So we're curious about it. The resources, we don't have that. So being able to be in that space has been really great for people. Yeah.
So people really want to explore it, but there isn't another platform, or like there wasn't.
Very limited. Yeah.
Exactly. So when you guys came in, like obviously like, there were a lot of interest.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I have another question.
Yes. Go for it.
So, you're talking about how you deconstruct shame around pleasure. And as far as I know about shame from Bernie Brown, if you listen to her or read to her, like shame is something that you feel shame. So it sort of like paralyzes you to speak up about it. I know. So how do you make people speak in that situation? Because they're ashamed of themselves. And shame likes privacy. Shame likes isolation. So when you're like ashamed of yourself, your body, you're just like, don't want to talk about it at all to anyone. So how do you create that space for people to, be comfortable and just like come forward and like talk about something that they haven't talked to about to anyone?
This is such an interesting question. Like, I think because we're talking about sexual pleasure and the sort of society that we come from, is again so much filled with shame, guilt, fear, even. So hamro, it's like a very gradual way. So the workshop, you can see the intensity is sort of like increasing. So one thing that I've really recognized is people, because we did focus group discussions before we curated this workshop. So one thing that I really recognized was people want to talk about their stories. So because we don't talk about or think about pleasure paninta. So it's so much of that workshop is about, first of all, making you reflect on your experiences, then sharing it, and then giving information. So the reflection is the very important part, because then you personally connect to the topic. So we start off with, I get pleasure from, and you just write it. We have like sticky notes, chart paper, anything from like food to sex toys to anything. Conversations with people. So त्यो way you see like the reflectance. Okay, so you sort of connect with the topic, and then we have a lot of reflection session. And we sort of discuss. I think that helps because again, we have people who don't want to talk, and that's completely fine as well. We have people who want to share. Okay? So when you balance that out, when people are sharing about especially when we talk about sexual pleasure, it's normalized this space. So again, there are people who wouldn't talk at all. That's completely fine because the level of shame that we've internalized differs for different people. So त्यो way मा चाहिँ it's slowly like you reflect, then you share, and then you hear other people share, and then you're paired. So the pair garदाखेरि becomes more one-to-one, right? So what we're trying to do with that is you learn how to communicate your pleasure, but you also learn how to communicate your consent with that partner of yours. The workshop ma. So this is we practice that. And the end ma say, then like usually what happens is I ask them the question, how do you masturbate? Silence even after all of that, there is silence, which is understandable. So I usually start off by sharing my own experience. It's all about normalization. So once you say, this is what I hump on a table, that's how I masturbate. So that just creates that environment for people to be like, okay, it's normal. So I think so much of normalization really helps. But then it's a process. Workshop make sure to add the goyo shame.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I think the experience sharing really helps.
Right. Interesting.
All right, after a mini break, we guys are back.
Yes. So maybe alikati we can divert to Aakriti's story now, because I think हाम्रो breakमा चाहिँ we sort of found out about St. Mary's को We are in for the story, for some tea.
Spill the tea.
So again, the कुरा गरेको थियो नि बुढानीकण्ठको आर्टिकल आएको थियो भनेर के. So ठ्याक्क it was around first wave of COVID पछि around जुन भनेपछि जुन भन्दा अगाडि कुन मन्थ आउँछ मेतिर थियो हैन. So अनि at that point I was like, why are we only talking about बुढानीकण्ठ भयो के. अनि यसो बसेर सोचे के. अनि I started thinking about St. Mary's. I was like, that place was problematic.
Yeah.
So you wrote the piece on St. Mary's?
well, okay, wait.
Let's
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So के भयो भन्दाखेरि अनि त्यसपछि what I did was कि Instagram, I love Instagram, we all love Instagram. अनि Instagramमा I wrote a call for people to come and talk about it. So I was like, let's talk about St. Mary's. हुन्छ नि, let's talk about the sexism, racism, homophobia, favoritism in St. Mary's. हुन्छ नि, that place wasn't, हुन्छ नि, like हामीले धेरै कुरा त दियो, but like it was still problematic and we have to talk about it भनेर के. अनि त्यसपछि I shared one incident of when we were in grade 9 and we were organizing farewell co-party and all of us got food poisoning. Yes. All of us got food. Like I remember I got food poisoning as well. Okay. Ani senior पछि अब
I think I know the story.
Obviously.
I don't, please.
अनि farewell को दिन थियो अनि even like राति 12 बजे, legit 12 बजे I'm sleeping and I literally woke up and vomited. Okay.
Oh my god.
And it's like I thought I was sick. अनि kind of social media but everyone is sick.
Yeah.
What the fuck is happening? अनि Monday school गयो, 1/3 of the classes like was only present जस्तो के. अनि they were like तिमीहरू मास बङ्क गरेको, तिमीहरू जान यताउति उल्टै हामीलाई गाली गर्न थाल्यो कि. अनि we were like अनि उल्टै हामीलाई we were made to apologize के. अनि हाम्रो क्लास no sister food poisoning भने खै के भने चाहिँ you guys were disrespectful, you said त्यस्तो प्रिन्सिपललाई भनेर उल्टै स्टुडेन्ट्सहरूलाई नै उ गर्यो. अनि even teachers were absent के because they got food poisoning. अनि त्यो भएपछि but पछि I came back and somehow I'm very surprised. They were like, they kind of even manipulated me into believing ki, you know, weather नराम्रो थियो, चिसोमा बसेको थियो, so त्यस्तो के, because that is a major violation नि त.
Red flag.
But we were ultै gaslighted. We were weather यताउति के. अनि I wrote about त्यो story पनि. अनि त्यसपछि I created a Google form पनि के like send in your stories भनेर के. 3 दिनमा I got 83 responses from people who graduated from 2010 to 2020. And my questions were about have you faced any sort of sexism, favoritism stories or body shaming stories?
Slut shaming.
And this एकदम धेरै के अनि character assassination was such a huge thing के त्यहाँ कुनै नगर assembly को अगाडि यस्तो character assassinate हाल्दिन्थ्यो. अनि it's like हो त्यो सब गरेको थियो नि त. अनि by the second third day अनि I had recently returned back के समरको लागि आएको थिएँ घर. अनि ड्याडलाई फोन आएछ के अरे बाबालाई फोन आयो कि नम्बर दिनु आकृतिको भन्ने खालको कुरा कि. अनि he gave me अनि त्यसपछि was like नानी तर त साइबर ब्युरोबाट फोन आएछ त के त्यो नम्बर दिएछ तैँले के गरिस् भनेर भन्छ. I was like के गरेँ कि like I mean I wrote about it, I don't know, I'll tell you later भने. अनि एकछिनपछि फोन आयो कि they're like तपाईँको नाम आकृति घिमिरे हो भनेर. I was like हो. अनि तपाईँको इन्स्टाग्राम ह्यान्डल यो हो भने हो भने अनि यो इन्स्टाग्राम ह्यान्डलबाट अस्ति सेन्ट मेरिजको बारेमा यस्तो आएको थियो, तपाईँले आफै लेख्नु भएको हो भनेर सोधेर मैले म आफै लेख्नु भएको. ए ठिक छ, तपाईँमाथि यहाँ उजुरी परेको छ, तपाईँ आउनुहोस् न त साइबर ब्युरो भनेर भन्नुभयो. I was like उजुरी परेको छ अनि के अरे लयर लिएर आउनुपर्ने हो कि के हो भनेर. होइन लयर लिएर अहिले आउनु पर्दैन, तपाईँ के आउनु अनि चाहियो भने त्यसपछि कुरा गर्न मिल्छ.
You were that calm.
I was
you were asking for like more lawyer लिएर आउँ कि नाम भनेर
सोध्नु परेन.
Damn.
दिमागै चल्दैन त्यो बेला त.
यसपछि
चल्छ मेरो त चल्दैन.
अनि त्यसपछि होइन माइ त्यो भेरी त्यो मोड कम्स अन. अनि I was like अनि साँच्चै उजुरी चाहिँ कसले हालेको सोध्न मिल्छ भनेर भने कि. अनि पछि सेन्ट मेरी स्कुलले नै हालेको भनेर ए ओके फक. अनि त्यसपछि फेरि अगेन त्यो काइन्ड क्वारेन्टिनको पिरियड थियो. सो आई वाज लाइक मम ड्याडहरू गइसक्यो. मम ड्याड वेन्ट अनि त्यो होल इन्टरेक्सन वाज दे वर लाइक हुन्छ नि हामीलाई तपाईँसँग कुरा गर्नु तपाईँको छोरीसँग कुरा गर्नुपर्ने. तर अगेन दे टोल मी कति अग्रेसिभ थियो अरे कि त्यहाँको एडमिनहरू जो आएको थियो 2 जना. अनि दे वर लाइक उसलाई किन अरूको चासो लिनु पऱ्यो कि, उसलाई के भएको थियो त्यसको बारेमा कुरा गर्नु, उसलाई किन त्यो हाम्रो स्कुलको यत्रो बदनाम भयो खालको कुराहरू थियो. आई वाज लाइक ल ठिक छ क्वारेन्टिनबाट निस्केपछि विल मिट भन्ने खालको कुरा भयो क्या. अनि त्यसपछि दे वर लाइक अनि फोनमा उ गर्दाखेरि दे वर लाइक टेक द पोस्ट डाउन खालको. आई वाज लाइक त्यो 24 घन्टामा जाने कुरा गइसक्यो अस्ति नै भनेर भने कि. अनि त्यसपछि काइन्ड अफ वेन्ट इन नेगोसिएट गर्ने टाइममा जस्तो होइन साइबर ब्युरोमै गएँ. अनि 2 जना अरू लयर्सहरू पनि जानुभएको थियो. मोर लाइक काइन्ड अफ टु सी हाउ इट प्लेज आउट यताउति खालको
फ्रम योर साइड.
या अनि त्यसपछि प्रिन्सिपल आउनुभयो. दे वक्ड इन. म त जराक उठेको कि आई डिडन्ट इभन थिङ्क अबाउट इट कि त्यस्तोसम्म वी बिन
conditioned.
या
गुड मर्निङ गुड आफ्टरनुन भन्नु उठेको.
एक्ज्याक्टली. अनि आई वाज लाइक उठेर आई वाज लाइक म किन उठेको भयो कि. अनि त्यसपछि वेन्ट इन. अनि या अनि भेरी फर्स्ट फ्यु थिङ्स इट वाज लाइक कस्तो दे स्टार्टेड सेइङ थिङ्स. अनि आई वाज लाइक म कहाँबाट सुरु गर्ने खालको भयो कि. because I didn't know how do I take further त्यो conversation हुन्छ नि. It's like legal things aside, we've been extremely hurt भनेको. And I'm like, legal things aside, we're in a legal institution. But okay, अब त्यो भन्ने बित्तिकै I didn't know where to. त्यो नि अब as much as जतिसुकै बाहिर आएर confident भयो भने त्यो रुममा पुगेपछि I couldn't try and be like होइन यस्तो 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 भएको थियो. I did say अलिअलि ऊ कुराहरू होइन, अनि कति धेरै कुराहरू they started saying. अनि कस्तो त्यहाँ बस्दाखेरि चाहिँ ब्याक टु स्कुलमा हामीलाई मोरल के अरे भ्यालु एजुकेसन क्लासेसमा हुन्छ नि, एम्फसाइजिङ अन मदरहुड, एम्फसाइजिङ अन हुन्छ नि
purity,
doing this for your own good खाले.
Yeah, अनि इट्स लाइक or एउटा क्वेसन कि लाइक हुन्छ नि तिमी आफ्नो बच्चालाई एकदम प्रोटेक्टेड इन्भाइरोमेन्टमा पठाउँछौ कि कस्तो इन्भाइरोमेन्टमा पठाउँछौ कि वाइ इज इट अ थट कि फर्स्ट अफ अल अज्युमिङ द्याट आइम गोइङ टु हेभ अ चाइल्ड, अज्युमिङ द्याट आई वुड बिकम अ मदर अनि ह्याभ टु मेक द्याट डिसिजन, अनि वाइ डु थिङ्क कि अलवेज प्रोटेक्टेड इन्भाइरोमेन्टमा त्यो हुन्छ नि. अनि अल्सो वान थिङ द्याट मलाई एकदम चित्त नबुझ्ने नेपालको एजुकेसन or लाइक एनी वानको ऱ्यासनलको कुरा इज कि they say कि हाम्रो समाजै यस्तै छ, so our schools have to be the same खालको के कि like which makes sense, the teachers are just a reflection of the product of our society होइन. But त्यो स्कुलमा चाहिँ तिमीले you're telling us कि gender discrimination is wrong, you're telling us this is wrong, तर तिमीले त त्यही कुरा स्कुलमा त्यही कुरा reinforce गरिराख्यो नि त. You're not giving us, exactly, you're not giving us a, school should be progressive environment, school should be a place which are free of sexism, which is free of these sort of patriarchal dominations, you know. But they're legit reinforcing the same thing, reinforcing the idea that we have to be mothers, that we're going to become, someday you're going to become a mother and you need to think about it. And that would always be the starting of a conversation. Okay? Why? Ani, that was...
Our entire argument would be based on like, what would you do if you were the mother, Khali?
Kind of. Ani, so many other things, and I just... as much as I would have loved it. One thing that I said was ki la thik cha, and they wanted me to apologize, and I was like thik cha, I don't have त्यत्रो ego पनि छैन, I will apologize हुन्छ नि. But I was like thik cha, I'll apologize, but I've collected these 83 responses. त्यो त पढ्नु न, people have written यति लामो लामो responses के त्यो त पढ्नु न प्लिज भन. They were like no, right channel बाट आएन भनेर के. I'm like,
what is the right channel?
Exactly. अनि त्यही त हैन, अनि पछि quite some time later अब सो यो सब fiasco भयो हैन. त्यसपछि I was like social media, I was like you know what, I needed time to reflect. त्यसपछि I went off social media 8 महिनालाई. And then त्यो बेलामा त्यसपछि Reddit मा someone came out and they talked about it नि त त्यहाँ भित्रको. अनि त्यसपछि other people started coming out about it के. अनि त्यो बेला बल्ल I came back to social media के, and I talked to with the record मा पनि, talked to Kathmandu Post मा पनि about what it was like the before भनेर. किन भन्दाखेरि पहिला पनि स्टुडेन्टले रेज गर्न खोज्दाखेरि how they try to silence it के. एउटा त्यत्रो बिग इन्स्टिट्युसनले एउटा स्टुडेन्ट माथि त्यसरी गर्न जरुरी त थिएन नि त. अनि त्यो भइस अब which again goes both ways, right? For me it's like you could have literally come and talked to me, and for them also it's like you could have literally come and talked to me के. So it's if you think of it from their perspective as well, हैन.
Would they have listened though?
Exactly.
And उनीहरूले भने पो they're a big institution, they can like come to you, talk to you, whatever हुन्छ नि. But तिमीले गएर I think people have tried होला हैन. पढिरहेको बेला नै केही इन्सिडेन्ट्सहरू भएको बेला I think people did try to go talk to हुन्छ नि mother भन्छ, mother, father,
sister.
I am so sorry. Just हुन्छ नि त्यो स्कुलको मान्छेहरूसँग बोल्नु खोजेको थियो होला, कम्प्लेनहरू गर्नु. I think त्यो डिसमिसिभ भएर नि त्यो कुराहरू सप्रेस हुँदा they had to find a channel नि त. अब राइट च्यानल, अब I don't know what the fuck the right channel is हैन. But at least like they needed a way to like put their stories forward, which you provided. And yeah, exactly. अब
अनि त्यसपछि यो when Reddit को सबै कुराहरू came out, अनि त्यसपछि came back and we kind of formed a group sort of हैन about time भन्ने खालको. अनि we had this whole session where we just invited everyone to come in and just share their things खालको के. 2 घण्टा भइसक्यो, no one wants to leave के. अनि we were around more than 80 people के on the call, and it's all in Zoom के. सोच न मान्छेहरूलाई कतिसम्म त्यो स्पेस चाहिएको रहेछ के कुरा गर्नलाई. अनि पछि there was also someone we think school को तर्फबाट आउनु भएको थियो कि, and they were like oh we heard about this but यो तमाशा के गरेको यस्तो यस्तो खालको के. अनि everyone was like तमाशा होइन यो हुन्छ नि यताउता. For the first time students could legit stand up to the institution and say it out. And this is all happening public live tha Zoom ma yatauti ni ta. For the first time they could, and because of that anonymity they could ke हैन. because we told them तिमीहरूले आफ्नो नाम पनि राख्नु पर्दैन केही पनि गर्नु पर्दैन होइन अनि we were also anonymous at that point अनि we still are भनौँ न अनि this was
not anymore तेरो आवाज चाहिँ also you have a unique you
yeah I think our people in power always want to keep their power on like you know silencing the issue like हाम्रो last podcast ma kura gareko jasto you know talking about the issue is giving power to the issue you know and like obviously people in power would want to silence those issues so I think there has to be places like the Zoom call when I say if you have to write about it if you have to do a podcast about it if you have to do any form of just like address the issues in any form way shape size possible like you should just because it happened before and feel like things the moral compass what is right and what is wrong do kind of shift as you learn more you live and you learn more things I think like जुन चाहिँ कुराहरु सेमिनारिजमा भइराको बेला most people didn't even think it was wrong होला के you know people who the things that were happening to themselves it's like यस्तै त हो खाली हैन that's how it's been going on in the society bus stop मा जाँदा पनि it's the same behavior घर जाँदा पनि it's the same behavior school मा जाँदा पनि it's the same behavior so you just like tend to live with it you know but obviously you go out in the world and you see things are different and things shouldn't be this way so that is when our people like you who've left the school been through stuff would want to make changes so the people who are already oile bhako mancheharule don't have to go through the same problems you know
right
so
on that note do you want to like add to what you were saying agi the Bhojpuri dance you were saying something about it
so when you were talking about amro Buang Kontama because I have a lot of friends from Buang Kont you know a lot of guy friends who live there ani yo kuraharu chai I have heard ke so you seem जुन चाहिँ कुराहरुको तिमी कुरा गरे नि हैन the same stories I've heard from a guy's perspective and a lot of times it's such that we haven't been educated okay on such topics हुन्छ नि अनि यो भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ it feels like we're making an excuse हैन which अब like you said त्यति बेला when like हुन्छ नि girls had to stay quiet was normal guys being like that was normalized okay so guys making fun of girls or guys talking ill about girls or like just like हुन्छ नि ओ त्यसको हेर्न टाइपको हुन्छ नि which is normalized okay but as अब suppose you're getting older and you're saying that त्यो चुप लाएर बस्नु was wrong we get older and we realize that त्यस्तो गर्नु was wrong भनेर के हैन so there's a gap in both ways के मलाई चाहिँ what sometimes मलाई चित्त नबुझ्ने कुरा चाहिँ how guys especially young guys are villainized के for the things they did back then it's not wrong it's I mean it's like wrong it's definitely wrong but I wish we had better guidance when we were growing up I wish there were people who told us it was wrong I wish we were educated and parented in a different way
right
you know where it was not so like different between different sexes where we were taught to be more inclusive where we were taught to be more empathetic you know but we were not so we're sorry but that being said the guys at that point maybe they lacked education or they lacked awareness they lacked a lot of things you know so I empathize with the guys as well
and it makes sense I think हामी सबजनाको common enemy ish भनौं न is the patriarchy who's like holding both like all genders
very so okay so abo if you're in a fucking environment like a residential school and no like at that point केटाहरुको लागि चाहिँ it's like do or die types हुन्छ के so you have to have some अलिकति हुन्छ नि so you do things that are tend cool type को के हैन so maybe like calling out girls or like teasing them or like eve teasing whatever was cool back then maybe that gave you त्यो credits or like हुन्छ नि केटाहरुले ओ ल दाइ type को हुन्छ नि हुन्छ नि so to survive in that kind of environment like some guys had to do that के हैन so त्यो पनि थियो के like residential स्कुलमा चाहिँ कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि if you're not the top dog you get eaten के हैन
bullying is huge
bullying is huge like, I've lived in a residential school like complete like हुन्छ नि 300 people and we've been there I've been there I know friends have been there हैन so त्यस्तो पोइन्टमा भन्दाखेरि चाहिँ it's either eat or be eaten खाली सिचुएसन हुन्छ के अनि त्यसमा चाहिँ अब के भन्ने फेरि त्यस्तै मान्छेहरूलाई नै हु द टप डग्स अनि फेरि लाइक त्यो सिस्टमले पनि टिचर्स फेभर देम होइन उहरूले पनि लाइक त्यो क्याप्टेन पोजिसनहरू त्यस्तै मान्छेहरूलाई दिन्छ कि हु क्यान लाइक हुन्छ नि सप्रेस लाइक त्यो चोप्ला म बोल्छु टाइपको मान्छेहरूलाई नै दिन्छ क्या त्यो पावर पनि सो इट गेट्स रिइन्फोर्स्ड हुन्छ नि दोज बिहेभियर्स नै गेट रिइन्फोर्स्ड क्या अनि अब वाट डु यु प्रमोट अब केटाहरूलाई इफ यु टेल देम यो बिहेभियर गएर चाहिँ यु गन गो हायर अफ द ल्याडर द्याट इज एक्ज्याक्टली वाट दे गन डु नि त होइन बिकज एउटा सोसियल हायरकी त स्कुलभित्र पनि हुन्छ रियल लाइफमा नि हुन्छ होइन इफ यु अब त्यही नै हो बाटो त्यसरी नै भएर चाहिँ यु गेट हायर अप भन्यो भने त द्याट इज वाट यु गन प्रड्युस नि त होइन सो the problem is not just with the people but the surrounding, the environment, everything you create so yeah.
Kiri, I'll quickly add up a couple of things.
Please.
You use the term top dog, right? Okay, so kasto it's quite interesting ki for guys if you're out there, it doesn't matter timro padhai ki kasto cha, you'll still get the captainship, you'll still get everything. For girls usually, and this is even something budan garnuma ki timro padhai ramro chaina bhane you're not going to be anywhere else. Captainship ko position ma hoस् जेसुकै होस्, it's very interesting you sort of distinction अनि अर्को कुरा is कि when you talk about तिमीले patriarchy भन्यो नि तर also I think स्कुलको कुरा गर्दा who is reinforcing your patriarchy त स्कुल इन्स्टिट्युसन्स हो नि त स्कुल इन्स्टिट्युसन्स टिचर्सहरू सबैजना हुन्छ नि this whole community is because when we try to say patriarchy मात्र भन्यो भने there's a high chance कि we will just leave it to this ideological ला हामीले केही गर्न सक्दैन कि तर when you identify ल स्कुल इन्स्टिट्युसन चाहिँ हो भनेपछि चाहिँ and then you know where you can work on नि त त्यो भयो अनि अर्को कुरा चाहिँ I think this was also a learning that I had to do ki coming out of it and recognizing ki these guys did not have the guidance that they need so like oily it's not that I hold a grudge against them but this is something that happened and I want to acknowledge it
okay? Accountability is the sign someone has to start the conversation, has to break the chain
and many of them पछि आएर they've apologized हुन्छ नि यताउति अनि many of them have changed as well किन भन्दाखेरि and especially what I've seen the guys who've changed उनीहरू चाहिँ त्यो फ्रेन्ड सर्कलबाट जो निस्केर बाहिर गयो नि who went out particularly those उनीहरू चाहिँ they've changed drastically अनि उनीहरूको change has been very एकदम drastic अनि कतिजना चाहिँ who've been within the same friend circle चाहिँ कतिजना they've texted they're like Aakriti I want to change but then मेरो friend circle यस्तो चाहिँ it's so hard to भनेर so it's not कि I hold grudge against any of them हुन्छ नि I understand हुन्छ नि अनि many of them so it's very heartwarming to see कि अस्ति पनि मलाई एकजनाले लिङ्क्डइनमा I'm sorry भनेर पठाएको थियो कि मेसेज it's like हुन्छ नि and you don't have to apologize honestly you don't होइन so it's there but अब हामीले कहाँ गएर चाहिँ are we going to change this whole system हुन्छ नि how are we going to make sure कि अबको आउने जेनेरेसन्सहरू चाहिँ they don't have to have this sort of communication gap they're able to respect one another हुन्छ नि
I think the first कुरा चाहिँ होइन I think patriarchy address गर्दाखेरि चाहिँ it has to make like कस्तो भन्दाखेरि it's not a war against men भनेर चाहिँ हुन्छ नि एउटा उ हुनु because like a lot of times when you talk about patriarchy it's like the like male dominated itauti but like there are men who's been affected by the same shit हुन्छ नि so like one thing we have to talk about it's not a war against men is it I
think,
hope not.
No, it's I think so much of like intersectionality comes here, right? Because at the end of the day we do understand that patriarchal power disproportionately affects the power ko-sanga cha bhane jun question huncha ni that's important to address and I think again when we talk about patriarchy when we talk about masculinity pani haina the whole ideology about toxic masculinity it's glorified ekdamai you get the social capital that you talked about if you follow the behaviors of toxic masculinity you benefit out of that and also it becomes very त्यो group wala कुरा गर्यो नि एक अर्कालाई त्यो enable गरेर हुन्छ कि because त्यो social capital again as you said you don't want to be oppressed in that system right so त्यो way much I think toxic masculinity is something that really needs to be talked about and that's a part of feminism because that's what we talk about right and I think when we talk about it's not a war against men because this much intersectionality कुरा आयो नि त मेनमा पनि again we talk about this term which is a bit jargonish hegemonic masculinity भन्छौँ कि the masculinity that dominates in the sense that you being a man looks like a certain way and if you deviate त्यहाँबाट you're the other ki. Then you become oppressed because of that, outcasted, right? And you don't want to do that because then you don't have access as well. So I think so much of intersectionality comes into play. Your identities, where do you belong in that social hierarchy, comes into play as to what access you have to this power.
Can you touch a little bit more on intersectionality here?
For sure. I think intersectionality is, for example, a gay man, the access to resources this person has looks different from a straight man, right? And gay or straight, this is just one form of like identity that we're talking about. A woman ke kura garde ho bhane, when we talk about a Nepali woman, who is a Nepali woman, right? For example, I come from an upper caste, abroad educated, middle class family. And these identities play a huge role as to what access to opportunities that I have, right? So English boldema, the access to like, certain opportunities that I have is there. So being able to recognize that, yes, as a woman, I'm oppressed in a patriarchal society, but as an upper caste woman, I have privileges just the same, right? So just being able to identify तिम्रो social positioning मा कहाँ छौ अनि कस्तो खाली privileges आउँछ, but also the form of discrimination that you face. So I think it's so important to understand that feminism is not against men, but we're against certain group of men that holds that power. नेपालकै कन्टेक्स्टमा कुरा गर्दाखेरि upper caste menहरू चाहिँ नि Brahmin men, Kshetri men, again in terms of class पनि कुरा आउँछ हैन. So it's so much of like sort of identifying that. Yeah. Akriti, anything you want to add?
Nope. You've covered it.
Okay. Is there anything you want to add?
No. Just relearning a lot of things.
We all
is
are.
nice.
We all are.
Yeah.
So we did touch upon about this. We already deviated bitama, which is like I think was very insightful. But like we were talking about pleasure activism and all of that. I sort of wanted to, move the spotlight to Akriti and sort of like talk about your professional work, Unsani, because you also cover a lot about reproductive health and how unmarried women are like alikati kasto bhanne discriminated gynecologist koma janda. I think you wrote a piece about that, which was quite interesting. Do you want to like touch upon that? Because I think all of us, three of us.
I've been to gynecologist with people.
Oh, that's different. That's different. But like, yeah.
I think that I'll come to you this year. So gynecologist ko kura garदाखेरि we're talking about pleasure activism, how there is no access to knowledge यताउति कुराहरु हैन. Sex education नै छैन. That's we can just say भए पनि all girls school मा त skip हान्दिन्थ्यो भनेपछि we can imagine. So gynecology, there are gynecologists, but they focus on maternal health care.
Right.
We're not mothers. We're young girls. We're young adolescents. We're women who've just barely started menstruating. त्यो भनेपछि every single approach, majority gynecologists ले कस्तो हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि they approach you from that maternal lens बाट के. So young girls को needsहरू, which is mostly making sure that they're not intimidated when they go to a doctor's, making sure their privacy is respected, and they don't feel prejudiced. Kasto huncha भन्दाखेरि I talk to a lot of young girls about this, and they're like, are you a virgin? They're there with their mothers, and see they question कि तिम्रो boyfriend छ? Or like looks up and down, बिहे भइसक्यो? These sort of questions के.
Married or unmarried?
Very common.
And the thing is कि they want to know whether you're sexually active or not. तर बिहे भएको छ कि छैन? बुढा कहाँ छ? These sort of questions, they don't help ni. हैन? अनि there's a lot of त्यो whole जब तिम्रो त्यो डक्टरकोमा गइसकेपछि त्यो it's very त्यो prejudice sort of environment भइसकेपछि it's very difficult for them to open up. Many of them can't open up in the presence of their mothers. And त्यो भइसकेपछि talking to doctors, they're like कति cases मा त women are suddenly pregnant and they come in for delivery. Right. Because they just don't know what's happening.
Wait, what?
This has happened. So it's like they don't know that they're pregnant.
Okay.
And suddenly about delivery period matter, they're kind of aware कि oh fuck. अनि बिचमा अब कुसँग जाने कहाँ जाने it's a whole hassle त्यही त. अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि this whole idea कि or like say look into नेपालको बजेटको कुराहरू यताउति गर्दाखेरि पनि इट्स भेरी प्रजनन स्वास्थ्य एज इन मटर्नल हेल्थ हो यसमै फोकस छ कि बजेटिङ पनि कि एडोलेसेन्ट हेल्थको लागि फोकस खै त अनि अहिले चाहिँ यो बजेटमा चाहिँ HPV भ्याक्सिन विच प्रिभेन्ट सर्भिकल क्यान्सर फर वुमेन त्यो पनि ल्याउनु चाहिँ ल्याएको छ बट हाउ आर वी गोइङ टु एक्सेस इट त त्यो चाहिँ कसरी एक्सेस हुन्छ होइन अनि दिस होल it's not accessible, it's not respected हुन्छ नि my friend she went when she was young गयो they're like ultrasound गर्न जाऊ सबै pregnant woman छ and she's a young girl who's sitting there and everyone's looking at her माथि तलसम्म के अब it's not त्यो डक्टरको fault मात्र होइन कि whole systemकै faultै भनौँ न so it's like adolescent friendly healthcare system वीर हस्पिटलमा 2000s तिर बनाउन खोज्यो त्यसपछि policy makers did not emphasize it सक्यो गभर्मेन्टको अफिसियल डेटाको हिसाबले 1500 वटा जस्तो adolescent friendly healthcare services छ बट कति धेरै त्यो डेटाहरू हेर्दाखेरि it's not there for them अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि अनि बिकज त्यो छैन त्यो भनेपछि कन्ट्रासेप्टिभ्सको बारेमा इन्फर्मेसन छैन or like अस्ति नै एकजना फार्मासिस्टसँग कुरा गर्दा फार्मेसीमा अङ्कलसँग कुरा गर्दा हि सेड कि पहिला जति कन्ट्रासेप्टिभ पिल्सहरू बिक्री हुन्थ्यो नो सरी कन्डम्सहरू बिक्री हुन्थ्यो अहिले द रेट विथ विच कन्डम्स आर सोल्ड आर गोइङ डाउन आई पिल्सहरू इमर्जेन्सी कन्ट्रासेप्टिभ पिल्स आर सुटिङ अप विच इज अ म्यासिभ ह्याजर्ड कि इट्स अ म्यासिभ ह्याजर्ड नि टेकिङ इमर्जेन्सी कन्ट्रासेप्टिभ पिल्स यु सुड बी टेकिङ इट एज मच यु सुड बी टेकिङ इट एट अल इन फ्याक्ट होइन बट स्टिल अनि this whole conversation around this is lack of sex ed bate ayo ani the whole infrastructure so it's alarming. Very concerning ni or like think about it women haru Nepal ma aba menstruation related there's so much of stigma around it ni ta so contraceptive pills khaidincha to delay their menstrual periods they don't know what they're taking so it's like okay you give that expression do you know ki अब यु नो पिरियड्स हुँदाखेरि यो उयो नगर भन्छ सो पिरियड सार्ने औषधि खान्छ नि यो अवेर अफ इट सो द्याट्स कन्ट्रासेप्टिभ पिल्स के एन्ड वुमेन डोन्ट नो द्याट इट्स कन्ट्रासेप्टिभ पिल्स के इट्स यु गेट इट अन द काउन्टर होइन विच इज फाइन होइन विच इज गुड त्यो बिकज द्याट वाज अ होल पोलिटिकल मुभमेन्ट द्याट केम इन किन भन्दाखेरि नेपालको हाउ डु यु रिड्युस द बर्थ रेट भन्ने खालको कारणले दे ब्रट इट एन्ड इट्स सोल्ड भेरी सब्सिडाइज्ड मिनिमल उसमा तर फार्मेसीमा गएर पिरियड्स हटाउने औषध दिनु न भनेर दिन्छ झट्ट दिन्छ दे डोन्ट इभन नो वाट द नेम्स आर they don't even know what it does they don't even know how it fucks up their periods huncha ni so tyo bhayisakepachi ani or like another instance where someone went ani ekdam renowned gynecologist yaha Nepal ma haina well known diagnose garyo but they never informed the patient about what their diagnosis is timलाई यस्तो भइरहेछ यसको consequence यस्तो हुन्छ त्यो proper counseling नै छैन के
informed
because informed decision making त्यो त पेसेन्टको हातमा हुनु पऱ्यो नि ल मलाई यस्तो हुन्छ ओके आई चुज टु हेभ दिस मेडिसिन आई डोन्ट वान्ट त्यो नै छैन कि अर लाइक से यो क्वेसन सोध्छ नि आर यु सेक्सुअली एक्टिभ अर नट यु सुड आस्क देम यु निड टु नो द मेडिकल हिस्ट्री तर यु क्यान बी लाइक म पेसेन्टसँग इन्डिभिजुअल बस्छु एकछिन तपाईँ बाहिर जानुहोस् न भनेर त्यो गार्जियनलाई भन्न सक्छ नि त होइन त्यो गर्नु पऱ्यो नि त टु रेस्पेक्ट देयर प्राइभेसी अनि अफकोर्स अब त्यो एडोलेसेन्टको कति धेरै सिग्नेचर्सहरू यताउतिको लागि पेरेन्ट्सहरू चाहिन्छ फाइनेन्सियली इन्डिपेन्डेन्ट हुँदैन होइन बिकज अल अफ दिज थिङ्स they're so hard for them to access it. It's just creating a lot of
it was alikati different experience bhanau na because I went in with my mom gynecologist ko ma chai I got the stares obviously sabjana pregnant women and I got the stares I felt alikati kasto uncomfortable that I went in ani tei sodyo married unmarried nai sodyo हैन obviously but she sort of like follow up को लागि भोलि पर्सितिर आउनु भन्यो अनि द कन्भर्सेसन वाज भेरी अलिकति अनकम्फर्टेबल एन्ड आई थिङ्क माई मम कुड सेन्स इट टु एन्ड सी इज लाइक तिमी आफै जाउँ त भोलि अब कलेजबाट जाऊ यस्तो यस्तो खाले भयो अनि आई वेन्ट इन अनि लाइक त्यसपछि चाहिँ लाइक द गाइनोकोलोजिस्ट वाज अल्सो लाइक ओपन लाइक इट्स ओके इफ यु कम अलोन हुन्छ नि यु डोन्ट हेभ टु वरी अनि त्यसपछि लाइक सी लाइक एक्चुली आस्क्ड क्वेसन्स अनि हुन्छ नि लाइक सेक्सुअली एक्टिभ छ छैन एन्ड अल अफ द्याट अनि देन चाहिँ आई फेल्ट अलिकति कम्फर्टेबल क्या एट इज हुन्छ नि अनि like I was going through your article and listening to how like people were like diagnosed त्यसरी म भएको मलाई कस्तो फिल हुन्थ्यो होला जस्तो सोचिरहेको थिएँ क्या म अनि also like I think we were talking to one of my friend and she also went to the gynecologist and she had to do that procedure where you have to insert the I don't know what's that called
pap smear test
I think that
and
कस्तो like no like हुन्छ नि like हुन्छ नि केही भन्दै नभनिकन यतिकै छिराइदियो खाले
yeah
अनि she's like I was like was that a girl or a guy खाले हुन्छ नि And it's disappointing because it was a woman khale bhanirako थियो क्या उसले because like as women you should know ni ta how it feels, how uncomfortable it might be khaleko.
Yeah.
I mean there's at least all you have to do is like, okay, I'm going to do this hai matra bhanne ta ho. It's just like one line and we'll feel a little safe क्या. त्यो नि छैन खाले.
I just wanted
very sad.
Sorry, I just wanted to add something on that, like how that is not trauma informed as well. Like imagine somebody who has gone through like sexual assault having something inserted without even consent, like informed bhain ni ta. So that reaction can be triggering and traumatizing.
That happens.
Exactly, like that's very triggering. But also in terms of health services, say in terms of also queer inclusive kati cha ta, trans men, how accessible are these services for them, right? So we were also like BDS there was this consultation and we were like talking about these issues as well. So trans men seeking abortion services, how accessible is that? Where is that? Kotiko queer friendly are these spaces as well? Is something that needs to be discussed by Niki. So I think that's really important.
Exactly. And like yo kura sundaखेरि चाहिँ like I was talking about how we come from very privileged backgrounds if you talk about Nepal, you know. अनि हामी त we can at least have access to these places के. अब अलिकति नराम्रो भए पनि obviously like हुन्छ नि we have to talk about them so that they like improve. But then like कति ठाउँमा त access नै छैन क्या. So we have our phones, we have our car, wherever like we can at least go if we want to go alone, like we have like the capability to do that. Suppose there's this young woman who's like हुन्छ नि अलिकति rural place मा हैन and she does get pregnant and she's sexually active, unmarried. हुन्छ नि the taboo around it in her village and like where does she seek यस्तो you know it's just like hard to even think about.
Yeah.
Like हामी त ल सोधेन married unmarried सोधेन भनेर we're complaining हैन. Like if you just start thinking about this हामी यो unmarried यो married unmarried कुरा गर्ने नि not me and I'm so sorry but like हामी कुरा गर्ने is a very small population नि त. Like the larger population is outside Kathmandu हुन्छ नि where there is no infrastructure as such नै भने नि हुन्छ like zero no none like एकदमै minimal भयो भने पनि is like सरकारी हस्पिटल्स क्लिनिक्सहरू सानसानहरू अनि द्याट टु अब हामीले त जजमेन्ट यस्तो पाउँछ भने लाइक एजुकेटेड इङ्ग्लिस स्पिकिङ फरेन एजुकेटेड एभ्रिथिङ होइन वाट एभर यु वान पुट आई मिन लाइक हुन्छ नि सो त्यो हुँदाखेरि त लाइक आई क्यान ओन्ली इमेजिन हाउ हुन्छ नि पिपल हु लाइक फ्रम लोवर क्लास सो कल्ड हुन्छ नि हु डु सिक सच आई नो services.
Before adding on about the larger political context, I want to ask you. So you said you've been to gynecologists.
I have.
Kusong gako and what was it like for you?
I've been there with a friend, you know, because she didn't want to go alone, and so I'd always like go with her. I've been there twice, more than like multiple times, different places, and it was fine because the doctor she was a youngish woman in her mid-30s-ish, so she was pretty polite. But obviously like I didn't go in, so I'd wait outside, and if in case there was like medical medicines or linu parni ke ke ल्याउनु पर्ने भन्ने मात्र I'd like go in, नत्र I'd stay out. I just like stay for अब उसको comfort हुन्छ नि, so I just wait outside.
Ani, what was it like from the people who were out there to watch both of you together?
Yeah, kind of, because it's mostly a husband and a wife going, and since I was there with a friend, it was a pretty alikati अर्कै तरिकाले हेर्ने, because like she would look really young हुन्छ नि, and like alikati अर्कै तरिकाले हेर्ने चाहिँ I kind of did notice those stares, but again like म चाहिँ I'm very alikati don't really mind people staring at me such, so I didn't like take it only.
No, but like if you're going a guy and a girl, like people will probably assume that you guys are married. Right? So isn't that like alikati comfortable? Was it like stares nahi थियो?
I didn't really make much of it. They were older people, but I was like, fuck it. Again, this comes from privilege. I can say fuck it.
Or just be like you didn't mind it.
Exactly.
So I'll add on to more about you, Timle, when you touched upon Nepal bada bahirako, Kathmandu bada bahirako. global gag rule bhanera when US ma it started. Global gag rule is like how do I explain it? This is this whole fund. So US funds a lot of many other countries ko reproductive health services through USAID, through any other poor, right? So your rule, let's say, it's like the last was 2017, I think, which was extremely strict. Let's say, तिमीले abortion services दिन्छौ भने we're not going to fund you at all. Okay? तर यतिसम्म कि तिम्रो NGO, INGO, whatever is on the ground, होइन? उसले abortion अरूलाई हामी गर्दैनौँ यहाँ अरूकोमा जाऊ पनि भन्न नमिल्ने के अब. So when that was introduced, Nepalma abortion services was extremely heavily limited. Yetisamma there was a podcast radio program too, which I don't remember the name. To radio program they would have these conversations on SRHR. And 2 days it was funded by USAID. Okay? So 2 days she could not use the word abortion at all. Okay?
Wow. Yeah.
So that means ki what happens in the US affects what happens to women in Nepal, particularly in rural areas, extremely. Okay? And अहिले very recently यो Joe Biden को उसमा पनि अब यो के रे अस्ति भर्खर I'm not entirely मलाई अब त्यो details ठ्याक्क याद छैन, but whatever that happened नि हो त्यो हुँदाखेरि अब there is this whole concern कि अब if they cut funding for abortion services in Nepalमा, what is it going to look like again? Because there are a lot of organizations which work on multiple different sectors, Nita. So, what had happened back then was that Mary Stopes ko kura garda, Mary Stopes International, which is huge provider of abortion services here in Nepal. They had 2 different projects, USAID ko arko project थियो, अनि they had abortion services that they were running, Nita. They didn't even exchange a pen and paper के दुईटा projects मा. Office divide गर्नु परेको थियो कि that is how strict that they had to be with to make sure that they were still getting funding for other projects. And now this is happening. The concern is कि a lot of manufacturers of these contraceptive pills and everything are based in the US or they're funded by the states and they're spread out across the world. त्यो पनि funding cut off भयो भने say people even in urban centers who can access these resources उनीहरुलाई त अब pills पनि छैन नि त. It's very risky about how all of this thing can play out. So many times हुन्छ नि हामीले US मा भइरहेको कुरा हामीलाई के concern गर्छ नि. It's a huge concern के. अनि maybe हामीलाई as people who are in urban centers यति affect गर्दैन जति गाउँघरमा गर्छ के. And one of my friends सुनसरीमा she used to work your reproductive health and she said ki young girls पहिलो कुरा त थाहा पनि छैन अनि secondly they insert things inside their vagina to just get aborted.
I've heard.
So it's extremely
desperate times.
Because obviously like imagine alright you're this young girl like usma you do get pregnant with your partner and then obviously there's nobody you can tell this to. Obviously if you tell your parents you're probably going to get kicked out or maybe worse, maybe worse, so you can't go to any medical health services because you don't have any financial backing or like education or information to do anything. So what do you do on those desperate times is you either like have the delivery on your own and kill the baby or you do worse things, obviously. Oh, it's alright. So Nepal being heavily influenced by foreign affairs is a huge thing, especially as kuraharuma and like yo abortion ko kuraharu coming up repeatedly US ma is problematic, man, because US ma bhako kuraharu it does get surface because they not only fund Nepal, they fund a lot of countries all over Africa, all over South Asia, on different parts. So you say Nepal matra hoina ki how एउटा foreign power this huge influence like सबैजनाको life ke all around अनि ideology. So but like what are your takes on abortion as a whole and access to abortion in Nepal as we talked about? Abortion. Do you want to talk about abortion though?
I think we've covered.
I think so. In terms of like personally expertise on Usarta, I don't think I would wanna personal experience wise and my ideologies with that and my stance with that is something I can talk about, but I don't think that adds to
about stance say on abortion. Pretty obvious, but
obvious. Exactly. I think just having that control over like your own body, that's so important, right? But make like our bodies being a political ground of debate. Okay?
Yeah.
That's like talk about
take it like making everything like you said, like making pleasure political, and suddenly making abortion political, just making a lot of things, making sexuality.
It is.
It is politicized.
It is
exactly.
Yeah.
So the struggle between political like your health and yourself is so hard, okay? Because a lot of times while growing up, you don't really take an interest on politics. Foreign affairs, that's something that happens there. Okay? You don't feel the direct, relation with them, the system. But as you dig deeper, like every single thing, like every single smallest decision is kind of like it does affect.
Yeah. I think that comes with privilege, right? Being able to think that things are apolitical, because it doesn't directly impact you, because you're in this bubble of even COVID ko belama, people would be like, Anugya Nepal ma chhau ke bhairachha, are your parents safe? And I was like, everything's still normal for us because I'm in that bubble, I'm in that privileged space. Right. So again, why would COVID be political for me? Because I personally think that ignorance is a privilege. So again,
Definitely.
comes back to all of that.
Kiri, I think I have a sort of question. So we're talking about abortion as this whole, like, whenever abortion comes up, it's always tied up to motherhood, Nita. It's always tied up to your reproductive roles. And the moment you don't provide access to abortion, it's like you're stripping away people's right to have sex as well. Right? And that brings in you're like, you have sex just to produce babies, and that's what you do. But then you don't just have sex to produce babies, right? So the more that you the more that you try to restrict the access to abortion, the more that you restrict the access to pleasure.
See? Yeah.
And you're giving this idea that to young girls that sex भनेको चाहिँ like बिहा गरेपछि reproduce गर्नलाई मात्रै हो भनेर. So you're repeatedly reinforcing this idea
of purity, chastity, of your honor being in your vagina,
or of being a woman. It means reproducing, and if you're not able to do that, you're not woman enough, apparently. So that's such a good point. Thank you. Like, I think
it all like ties everything together that we talked about as well.
I think we've talked a lot on a lot of things. Do you want to add anything? US ko uru हेरेर थिए अनि Oklahoma is like what? It's like eliminated. It's illegal. And on so many like other places, it's other states, it's like reds. I think I'll put this podcast ma garda theri, I'll put this table up. So I was just like checking out the US ko map ani त्यसको accessibility ani it's just like kaka चाहिँ legal छैन, kaka चाहिँ कति accessible छ. Yeah. This is exactly.
This is the US.
Anything you guys want to add on? Because I have a question coming up.
Go for it.
No, actually, like talking about all of this, एकैचोटि कस्तो like I feel क्या heavy हुन्छ नि. I'm pretty sure you guys feel that too. अनि as journalists and as activists, you guys are constantly being exposed to stuff like this, क्या? And I'm going back to your story where you were like posting about I need a break, like I've covered enough खालेको. And rightly said, हुन्छ नि, like I can't imagine how heavy it must be, because we did some of the series on similar issues, and it was actually
very
heavy. Yeah, I'm like पनि. अनि I just wanted to ask you guys, how do you guys take care of your mental health?
Aakriti.
You talk, I talked a lot.
Huss. I think I'll just give an example of recent So I am working on this campaign called Gender-Based Violence. So it's Langik Hinsa Birudha Hami Bhanera. We're doing it on Instagram, right? So while I was working on the curation of the Instagram posts, Bela Sushmitaka case also came up. So it became like professionally, you have to work on a campaign, which again, my personal is political. So the way I can't separate, but work ma tyo gardakheri, then Instagram ma pani the stories, the narratives, the conversations that are happening, research garda pani, like finding an Excel sheet which has a lot of complaints or like files of like cases, gender-based violence goes, and knowing that these stories are personal and these are like a very they are realities, right? So त्यो बेलामा it was so difficult because मामुसँग कुरा गर्दा पनि यही निस्किन्थ्यो and sometimes she would say a lot of victim blaming को triggering stuff पनि त्यसपछि Instagram मा हेर्छु पनि त्यही छ work life मा I have to research about that holding like focus group discussions with survivors / victims themselves आफ्नो own journey of like हुन्छ नि sexual abuse and everything so त्यो गर्दाखेरि it just became a lot के अनि how do you separate when you have to work you have deadline but so त्यो बेलामा चाहिँ I was like what do I do so एकदमै त्यो हुन्छ नि take a step back but then how do I still like you know work I couldn't deliver my whatever I had to do so I think what really helps me is having that community with you it's like really sort of like personally helps me
community as in
yeah I will elaborate on that in terms of like just Aakriti calling Aakriti and being like oh yaar sakdina ma ta activism pugyo malai bhanera huncha ni just being able to the frustration nikalnalai but also I think it's so important as activists who work on social issues to be like sabai social issues ma bolnu pardaina ke so being able to be like I'm not in the mental space doesn't mean I don't care I do definitely. But मेरो own personal mental health needs are important because that's only when I myself am there will I be able to give right आफ्नै headspace मा छैन भने त सकिदैन नि त so त्यो way मा चाहिँ I think just recognizing that and like giving yourself that grace के like it's okay but for me again community has really helped we organized this care space where we sort of shared our stories of sexual abuse and we all cried we laughed together and that was such a healing space because sometimes we're not there yet to talk about our experiences sometimes we are there but we don't have these spaces so I think त्यो way मा चाहिँ just finding that balance between when I need my people and when do I keep away from triggering people but also taking my space as well and not feeling like I'm not doing enough which is a bit difficult to balance but I think with time we learn and we need people to remind you as well so I think that's somehow I've sort of like navigated these situations
interesting
so same thing with the recent case of the child actor and model coming up this person it was child actor and model I don't want to name her
okay
yes
kind of giving this ani so when that case came up ani I was like belka heryo and because you're always a journalist and you're looking for things to write about as well you look at it and you're like shit but you don't want to call her and be like tapai lai ke bhako thyo when she's narrated her entire story out there so it's about you want to cover it but how do you cover it भन्ने खालको कुरा पनि so trying to start from there and then because a lot of things happened at the same time and त्यसपछि I was suddenly in the midst of a lot of sexual abuse sexual assault stories so it was talk to around 25 to 30 different women अनि सबैको stories and कतिजना त they were like Didi I'm sharing this for the first time हुन्छ नि or like we're talking somewhere they're like Didi can I call you and can I share it with you or like हुन्छ नि someday I just wake up अनि मेरो phone मा I see handwritten notes ko pictures or duita of their stories I don't want to say don't send it to me kina bhandakiri for them sending that is healing it helps them
right
but also at that point all of that happened and I could take it but when I left it when I needed to take back and be like okay how am I going to write this how am I going to present this like our initial ideas was to just have every single story out there but then how would that help also as much as about when you're an activist versus a journalist it's like you have to report it right as an activist you want to do jam sabai gardina man lagcha but you can't हैन अनि त्यो भइसकेपछि there was also that conflict that was happening but also it gets extremely draining when you start seeing all of that play out in your personal relationship say like I was out with someone अनि certain कुरा के हुँदाखेरि कसैले भनेको ठक्क एउटा sentence याद आउने अर्को के याद आउने or like something is happening अनि अर्को छट्ट one sentence of someone who said it त्यो बेलामा याद आउने and it's like whoa what the fuck is happening जस्तो because it's as though कि my body was living through the trauma of other women I wasn't like it wasn't my experience it's as though कि मेरो whole experience in life was being completely influenced by someone else co experiences as well and that is where I realized that as much as like I'm learning to depersonalize ekdamai with work as I'm covering your issue, arko issue, but like still I haven't completely learned how to depersonalize, right? Okay? Many of them were like, take your work as work, okay? Which is a good suggestion, but how do you do that?
Yeah, exactly.
When you've always been an activist and now you're also a journalist trying to cover these things. How do you look at your work as work? And also what I think that I bring into the table is the emotional sort of aspect of dealing with with the individuals on the ground, right? So how do you balance that? And I realized that I need a break. I actually should have taken a break a few weeks ago, but just to be like, I need a break because this is affecting me. And that is where I think it's lacking in the journalism space, where they don't understand that this is mentally draining, and after this, I need a break. For someone to expect like la aaj article so someone just be like, so what was the response? So I'm like, I don't want to think about the response. I just want to take a break. Or being like, okay, this was heavy. Maybe just, are you okay? Or like, see, someone else shared their story of abuse, but no one went and asked them, how are you doing? Even within the journalism circle. Okay? So it's just looking at that, or like someone else, someone who has shared their story of abuse within the journalism room. So it's just, now that I think of it, it's not a care space that you need. It's like the work that we're doing is not easy. Okay? It's not easy to sit there, listen to someone cry and share their stories for the first time, and then going back and having to write about it and having to re-edit it over and over again, and then leave, and then still being like trying to see if you've done a good job. Like, why do you even have to look at it if I've done a good job? I don't want to. So, let's say technically, I'm taking this break for myself. Which I'm realizing it isn't quite possible. अस्ति घरमा थिए आन्टिजहरू came in and they started talking about this other case where जो अनसन बस्नु भएको छ नि उहाँले आएर माइती घरमा बसेर उहाँको केसको बारेमा कुरा हुन थाल्यो. अब कुरा गर्न थाल्यो जसरी कुरा हुन्छ अनि it's like ब्रेक त के को ब्रेक नो ब्रेक हुन्छ नि ल अफिस जाँदैन होला तर कन्भर्सेसन्स त भइरहेछ नि त. But it's just about अब how do you have these conversations but also make sure कि you have that different space for yourself. But also these are the issues that get your blood boiling and you're passionate about, right?
Yeah.
So I think another shame that we need to start removing is this self-care ko kuraharu, okay? And self-care not in the typical aspect of beauty ko aspect bata hoina ki like I just want to watch a stupid ass rom-com movie where I don't have to think about shit and I'll watch 10 things I hate about you. Like I'd rather just do that or just read a book which is super cheesy ass, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, so I think with like I would love to start incorporating.
Yeah. I was just thinking, so in terms of like they break kukura gadakiri, it's like, or even though you're having conversations right now, you have agency over that, because work mata certain set of deadlines have to deliver. You're getting paid. The capitalistic point of view, but then again, like you indulge in conversations, but you want to indulge in that because that space is receptive. So that agency pani aune rahecha ani I think that's really important to get to decide the kind of spaces you want to be. Because for example, as you said, because we're so passionate about this issue, we want to talk about it, but the agency nahudakheri it impacts you. So Instagram ma pani herira huncha, but like if it keeps on coming and flooding you and you don't have control over that really impacts your mental health, the needs that you have. And I don't think like your mental health needs not just journalism but even activism. Like I think everywhere actually, all like sectors because we're humans, how is this impacting us? So I think it's really important to incorporate, which again comes with how mental health is stigmatized in our society. But I think it's a very important question and also a conversation that needs to be started.
Kiri, I'll add one more thing. More on media perspective. See, what's happening right now? Nothing. It's died down. And that is what happens always. It's like it's like sensationalized until you have this bombast piece which is going to harp on mantiko emotional strings. That's when they write. That's when these issues get the space. It doesn't get the space when, like, that is why I'm frustrated with the media as well. Okay, it's like if it's the talk of the town, you're going to cover it. If it's not, you're not going to cover it. I know. Why? But these issues are happening every single fucking day. And that's what I'm scared about as well. Okay, asti etro lekhyo. For me to write about it, I need another context to write about it. Okay, why? Why should it be like that? I wish there was this whole purely feminist media platform which are just fucking reporting on these and following.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody please do it and hire me.
Aakriti, start garne.
Funding chahiye malai.
No, this just sort of reminds me of recently there's this movement started like Azad Morcha bhanne where they talk about oppression, like all forms of oppression against women. Ani asti they had a protest. Ani it was so ramro in terms of like the women who were being represented. Okay? So we had a panel discussion which was on the street. I know, because there was this question posed ke not say these panel discussion takes place like 5-star hotels katiko accessible chaina, so the conversation took place street ma ke and we had the panelists tin jana hununtyo. Ekjana is they're trans women, she advocates for trans rights. Then we had somebody from the indigenous community, we had somebody from the Dalit community. So having that perspective huncha ni, that's so important. But the turnout was kati thore ke. And the thing is because like अरूमा त फोटो खिच्न पायो इन्स्टाग्राममा राख्यो हुन्छ नि. So much of sensationalization.
So much of activism and going to protest is now being cool.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to go there, take a picture.
Exactly.
There. It's just like going to the club.
It's a trend now, and that's disheartening. But also, like, why do we need stories for like you like कसैको life sacrifice हुनु पर्यो for us to be on the streets, So in terms of that sustainability कहाँ आयो? I think that's something that as feminists and also activists and like working in this is something that we really need to think about.
But again, like saying you protest or trend bhanneमा like not saying like obviously like, it's like much एकदमै needed कुराहरु हैन. But what I'm trying to say is like you said sensational कुरा हुँदाखेरि मात्र attention पाउँछ, नत्र every other day like people who like on the streets they're like don't care. So these issues, they're happening every single day, and obviously like you said you started following up on like एउटा story where you get into 20 different stories. So that is how these things also do get के भन्ने अलिकति intimidating, and it spirals in खाले, because like these are never ending things. It's like it's been there, it's like going on every single day, like these issues happen every single day. अनि उहाँले भनेको कुरा again like हामी स्ट्रिटमा बसेर पनि कुरा गर्दाखेरि there isn't turnout because it's not sensationalized. हुन्छ नि हैन. But again like seeing that there is a safe space, जुन तपाईँ भन्नु भने like how you need safe spaces to talk about your mental health. हुन्छ नि. How about like, if it's getting heavy you can just call somebody. How you need that group of people or like a space where you can just openly talk about things, and that makes things much easier. And another thing is this 9 to 5, how we talk about work and keeping your private life and professional life different is a very Western capitalistic way of looking at things. You can't be one person 9 to 5 and just like switch the minute it's 5 and be another person. It doesn't work that way. But with me to think like that's how it should work. You go to work and they would
switch it off.
Switch it off, then you become this personal timro afno life ma matra. But obviously you do take a lot of what happens 9 to 5 home. And like हाम्रो workspace देखिन the home space also needs to accommodate that work. So again like त्यो accommodate गर्नलाई नुक्सले भने जस्तो we need those spaces. But again like the attention that only when there are like influencers involved or actors involved or actresses involved, but when there are like 3 marginalized people sitting on the street and talking about actual issues, it's not addressed.
So the group that you're talking about, is it like a real thing or is it like timarko personal?
Okay, so my friends involved, I'm not sure like how they came into existence, but maybe they could be a part of the podcast and talk about their movement as well. I think they'll give you a better understanding of what it is. Azad Morcha.
Azad Morcha.
Yeah.
So we definitely look into it.
Yeah.
So Augie, you started talking about Azad, but I was actually asking to a group of friends that you go to when you feel heavy. Is that a real thing? Like, can people go and be a part of it? So that
we want to be part of your friends.
You already are. But it's not like an established thing. But again, I think Aakriti or Mapani, like finding that community has been so much accessible through Instagram. Okay?
Right.
Digital activism has created that visibility of people who are working in the similar issues or are in the same ideological line as you. Right. So the way I'd say we've just been able to figure out the community in that sense, but also like working with people that has made it easier to have these people, because like energy na bhako belama, you don't want to talk to people who are going to trigger you or say something problematic. You don't want to explain them things. So just like finding that group has been a process. Nepal like फर्किदाखेरि पहिला थिएन त्यो, and it's something that we sort of created because we felt there was a need, not individual need but like a communal need. So that's something that we have sort of started, and I'm glad that we've been able to find like-minded people.
Talking about community and groups,
I
want to ask you guys about Date Dalals.
Ooh, Aakriti, you can go for it.
Okay, so basically dating life in Kathmandu sucks, Nita.
Tell me about it.
So it's like, it's been here, use dating apps, it's so jipaiteki, and also it's like there's this whole ideological clash where you're just looking at someone's profile and you're swiping left and right and like you're doing it and you're like, what the fuck is this? And you're trying to spark the same conversation over and over again, and it's like you meet someone, Rajabadi pardincha.
Yeah.
And you meet someone else and they're like, oh my god, I've never met anyone is too ambition back. It's like, bro, timi jindagima tya kasari pugyo bhanda, oh ese pugyo, and you're like, it's just so hard to navigate all of this. And we're like, and we like, we're friends, so we would always be complaining about it with one another. And Ankit also there, and I token gay friend, and we're all just frustrated, we're like, I'm getting speed dating, that was something that we wanted to do. And we're like, you know what, we should do it. And that's the perks about being here, you can do it.
I think intervene is so we were like speed dating garne bhanera, but then we realized it's very heteronormative, men women, men women. Ani tyo bhayeपछि we were like, nothing that we're going to do is going to be just heteronormative. We want queerness, we want that, we thrive in that, right? So kasari chai aba same thing, speed dating, but we make it queer. And that's exactly where the dalals come from.
Wow.
Pani.
I like the name.
Hi.
That just happened to be our group ko name ke essay. It wasn't something that we thought about. We were like, essay am teen jana ko group thyo, and the name was Date Dalals.
You're always fixing people up.
Somehow, actually.
But like even professionally though. Professionally, like I love connecting people. Okay. So it's like if you tell me about something, it'll be in the back of my mind. And if someone else said, I was like, okay, you guys have to meet. So I love doing that. But alongside that,
the matchmaker.
The dalals, not even matchmaker. The dalals right here.
Typical Nepali women. And it is actually, we were like, we're like, so how do we introduce? We're like, Date Dalal rakdim na, and it was a very catchy name as well.
It completely fits the thing that you guys are promoting. Alliteration.
It has that fun connotation to it, and it's very inviting also.
And that was also another thing, because we knew whatever we do would be political. Because we're just so political in ourselves and our work and everything. And we knew that this Date Dalali that we would do would also be political. Breaking out of the heteronormativity for us to curate this set of 20 people for our first event was also quite taxing for us. For us to sit and be like, okay, how do you balance the straight folks, how do you balance the queer folks and the diversity within the queer community as well, and how do you balance gay folks, how do you balance non-binary folks, how do you balance bisexual people. So that was mostly like, it was just out of our sheer frustration. We were like, we need this. And we created it.
Yeah.
And I think we've had this conversation before also about date dalals and the dating pochiko you guys have party and then you guys have this fun little space where people who have participated and who have not participated can just come and like get together. And you've done this once and you did it again. I'm Pride Parade bhako din.
Oh, that was a different event.
That was a different
but
event.
It was from Date Dalal, so that was an open mic that we did. Yeah.
Again, open mic bhaye pani, it was a place for everybody to come together and just have that. So obviously first event ma chahi, I was not able to come. The second event we were there.
Yeah.
And it's just like as soon as you walk in the room, it's like very inviting. Everybody's very inviting, and it's just
vibe was on point.
Yes.
Right? It's just that inclusive. It's just that you can be yourself.
So supportive. And everyone's there, just like so, like go, come on, like encourage garne.
Yeah, I think just adding again, I'm very critical with the work that we do. Inclusive, but also it's just certain socioeconomic class bata matre people can come because of again nightlife pani bhayo and then being able to be in that space. So we are looking into that pani haina, we can like open that to a broader community of inclusivity ke kura gardakeri. So त्यो level ma there is a lot of work that needs to be done, but that's something that's our priority pani.
Yeah, but you guys should like give yourself a pat
yeah.
on the back.
I'm sorry, I'm just always that kind of person.
I love that. Ani one of the things was ki हामीले FFN सँग when I did the writing workshop, ho त्यही कुरा पनि participants had raised. This is like as much as you say. किन भन्दाखेरि हाम्रो Instagram मा को छ त following, similar circle बारे त spread out भएको. But when we did that open mic with FFN, this much we were able to penetrate through a different sort of socioeconomic class of people. Ani kiri this much we had people who weren't originally from the valley as well. Came बाहिरबाट यहाँ आएर पढ्न आएको मान्छेहरू पनि के. And I think that moment when I went and talked to people, they're like, oh, मेरो घर चाहिँ यहाँ हो यताउति खालको. I was like, we actually in a lot of ways we're kind of doing it.
Yeah.
But there's also this aspect that people will need time to ease into this.
Definitely.
The more that we do, the more that we'll have more people from diverse backgrounds. But and diverse socioeconomic class.
Yeah.
Interesting. But it's probably not going to be the first and last. There are obviously many to come.
And
obviously with time you guys can improve and stuff. So that's always there.
That's always there. Yeah.
It's also a good learning process for us as well.
Yeah.
किन भन्दाखेरि for us we knew every event मा आउने मान्छेहरू यस्तै similar socioeconomic backgrounds, similar social circles better. But we also knew that we have to be patient with it, but also always keeping that in mind. Okay?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But again, like the so like finding people, finding spaces is so important, and obviously when you don't, you just create one. So that is commendable, and man, Abo.
I would say I think we're to the end of the podcast. If you guys want to add anything, closing remarks, anything, now is the time.
Malay.
Okay, I'll speak.
Go for it. Yeah.
I think one thing that I'm realizing is Nepal almost 1 year on lagyo. It's been 11 months or so. Only one thing that we both realized was we didn't have that sort of friend group. We knew we had each other, but we still didn't have that sort of friend group that we needed to confide in. And gradually, somehow, we sat down one day, together, we're like, no, we need one, we need to create one. And somehow we did. And not just with our friend circle that we go out, some days we go out to party, some days we just sit and we're like super political and talking about all of this, or we're like asking each other, मलाई यो कामको लागि मान्छे चाहियो हुन्छ नि, do you know anyone? Or trying to incorporate our interest in our work as well, and our work with one another, not just in our individual lives. Ani, I think that having that support system has been so important. And I feel so grateful every single day.
Same,
We're somewhere at this point in life, professionally, we're trying to do better, we're learning. And in all of that, we have these sort of people that you can just be like, hello, malai yo bhayo, malai chitta bujhe, or like, do you know more about this person? Or, okay, I'm going to go to this work. Do you have any resources? So just having that friend group with whom you can be as wild, as rowdy, and like with whom you can be as sexually open and talk about everything that you want to, but at the same time who understands the sort of families that we have, the sort of work that you do. I think it's been a huge blessing and a privilege.
Yeah. It's been amazing, honestly. Yeah. The चाहिँदो रहेछ. I think for me, what I really want to emphasize on is like Feminist Futures Nepal ma अब pleasure activism को कुरा आयो हैन. We have been challenging cishet male centric भनेर हैन, but there's so many more perspective that needs to come in terms of redefining pleasure, because again the question comes, who redefines pleasure, right? Queer community ma पनि there's so many intersectionalities, there are so many underrepresented voices, right? So त्यो way मा चाहिँ giving those spaces is important. Disability rights को कुरा, pleasure and disability, right? त्यो पनि it's really important to explore intersex folks like asexual community को लागि हैन, trans community ko lagi, how does pleasure look like? So there's so many topics that needs to come, and this is just a start that we have, and there's so much more to go, and I'm super excited to see and I hope with collaboration, with constructive criticisms, we can move forward with it.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's all from my end.
Wow, we had a very wholesome podcast episode today. Come on,
Same.
And this just feels like, sitting together with friends. And
exactly. That's
and talking. And like, obviously, now at the end of the podcast, we feel like we need another podcast.
Exactly. Well, that was an part 2 signing.
So maybe we'll schedule one before people leave.
Yeah.
People.
All right. So until then, thank you so much for watching and joining us towards Iti Lamo Bear. And we hope that हामीले भनेको कुराहरु बोलेको कुराहरु is of some insight, of some हुन्छ नि relevance. And thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for
so
inviting
much for
us.
having us.
Exactly.
Because more like I saw your post and you're like, I need a break and shit. Like, I'm so glad you did.
Yeah.
I know, because Pratibha texted, she's like, I understand you're on a break, but I love talking about this. It's just, I think they're having that agency, as you said. It's like, because I chose, right?
Yeah.
Which means I can keep myself in the headspace and talk about it. But it's also inescapable.
Yeah.
It's just about finding a balance.
True.
Find your balance.
Thank you.
Dhikichyau.
Dhikichyau. Oh, damn, that was smooth.
That's supposed to be our Kaskari. That is our mission statement. Like Dhikichyau, basically, we need a find your balance.
So if you can see, there's like a seesaw in between. So that's like balancing.
And there's two people on the seesaw.
Yeah. It's a very
it's
good
a girl and a boy. Kind of. I think kind of. Yeah. So it's just like
promoting our.
Well, we do stand for, like, the whole theme of this podcast has always been about finding a balance, because we both, like, always come from different perspectives, and it's always about challenging our own perspectives that we hold, bringing forward people with different perspectives.
I think what you did today was also a part of that, about bringing the male perspective. It's just like balance now and you also added on to that, how you sort of slowly.
I think in the next podcast we can talk about how masturbation is different for men. And how pleasure is different for men.
For sure.
That's a long way. We definitely
for sure.
So definitely, if you want to see part 2, please comment, like, share, subscribe, and I think we're going to end right here. And ta-da.